My name is Percy Jackson.
Hi, this is Shannon. I'm doing an intro video of sorts because we had a bit of a technical problem. Not only am I sick and so my voice sounds like this, so I'm really sorry about that. But our video for this did not record, but considering that we are the people who hate Luke Castellan the most, there is no way that we couldn't cover this sort of episode. And so I put other videos over us talking, and so I hope that it's still interesting for you guys to watch. Our video will work just fine for the finale. Please check all of our timestamps with many trigger warnings attached to them so that you can enjoy the video without getting triggered by any of the things that we talk about. But I just wanted to put that warning out there because I know that's annoying. I promise it's only going to be like this for this week, and then it'll be fine. Bye.
Hello, and welcome to our Season 2, Episode 7 recap of Percy Jackson and the Olympian Sea of Monsters. It is a bad time to be a Luke hater, so welcome to the Luke hater safe haven. You are safe here if you are also a Luke hater, because trauma is not an excuse to do bad things, and we'll talk about that as this episode goes on. But I say it's a bad time to be a Luke hater specifically because, like, the last two episodes have given us moments that the Luke apologists are clinging to with every fiber of their being. Episode 6, it was Luke saving Annabeth by taking the fleece and grabbing her. I would argue he's trying to save her by bringing her over to the dark side, by just, like, because he carries her away, and that there was no need to do that if he wasn't going to give her a pitch, which he doesn't. So that's a little strange.
Yeah, he says she's. What does he say? Like she will be, like she'll be fine now, or something like.
Yeah, stop it, sir. And then this episode, which we won't talk about it just yet, but it ends with something that, in our opinion, changes the spirit of everything about Luke. And so we just wanted to let you guys know as we go on this conversation that this will continue to be a Luke hater safe haven. That we are going to talk about these things in terms of how that trauma affects Luke. It's not an excuse, though. Yeah.
No, that's always the number one thing with us is that's just not how life works. You don't go through trauma as a kid and then use it as a reason to be a serial killer later on in life, or just hurt people. But especially when we know that's what Luke does.
Exactly.
Before we go too far, I did want to mention that we recorded on Tatiana's channel, and so if you're watching this from that, hello. And we probably won't repeat too many things because we tried to talk about things differently there than we would talk about here, so it wouldn't be repetitive if people watched both. But I just wanted to acknowledge that because some people would probably do that.
Yeah. I will say, I think the biggest difference is going to be we're going to be a little bit harder on Luke here, just because we want to save Tatiana some of the angry comments it may elicit, just how far we'll go with our Luke hate sometimes.
Most definitely.
Yeah, so this episode, it starts with Annabeth's, like, fleece dream. And it's partially a flashback, but partially one of the prophetic demigod dreams. So the flashback is what seems to be the morning after Thalia died, and Chiron discussing, like, okay, Thalia made the ultimate sacrifice to protect everybody. And we did say this on Tatiana's podcast, but Chiron's speech here feels a little propaganda-y. It feels a little rehearsed, like it was all pre-approved by the Olympians.
Yeah, it always kind of, everything Chiron says like that whenever he's talking about the gods, I'm always thinking, like, I wonder what really happened. But the thing with this I thought of today, which was different than yesterday, was I thought of this when we were podcasting last night. I was like, Kronos is trying really hard to get them to fight. Because this dream very much felt like the tree looks kind of like his coffin and things like that. And I know I just saw on Twitter that Monster Donut, they posted the Percy dream with Thalia in the book. And in
Mhm.
the book, Thalia says one of us has to get out of here when she is looking at Luke in the coffin, but we don't see who it is yet.
Mhm.
And this time, it's Annabeth hearing Thalia say, like, "Come on, kid, like we take care of our own. Let's get out of here." And so it's slightly different, but either way, like later on, Luke says to Annabeth that, like, "Oh, don't give them the fleece because they're about to give up."
Yeah.
And if you give them the fleece, they'll like, get like something back and think that they're going to be okay, and then we'll have to kill all of them. And that statement alone is like enough to stop and think about that. That's his justification of like, oh no, you're in the wrong for giving them the fleece because then I'll be forced to kill all these children, so it'll be your fault for giving them the fleece, not me for killing them. But
Yeah.
like, if you ignore that part, it's just this dream is very much meant for Annabeth to want to get the fleece to camp, and it makes her so focused on it because she realizes what it can do. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting that Kronos really wants the demigods to fight. Um, and it makes sense when you think about why he would. Like, he wants Luke to be like super daddy Darkseid, and him and him killing, people that he grew up with would definitely push, not only push him over the edge, but also push him over the edge for anyone like Annabeth and stuff that would have like considered. And I
Mhm.
also think he wants Thalia to come back for the drama, just to like make everything super chaotic and weird. And because he definitely wanted like Thalia in some way to come back or something in the books too. But
Yeah.
I just thought that was interesting that I'm like, he really wants them to like fight to the death. Um, and it does make the gods look bad, so I get why he wants to, but it's just interesting to think about that now after watching this episode a couple times.
Yeah. So going back to what you said about the tree kind of looking like the sarcophagus, I kind
Mhm.
of was I'm wondering if that's why they chose the kintsugi like motif on the sarcophagus, because like you see that it seeps into those gold splintered parts as
Mhm.
like the fleece starts letting its power onto the sarcophagus. And with the tree, it does look like the splinters of it too, but I didn't get a good enough look to see if it follows the contours of the tree too. I kind of want to think maybe it's just like the fleece magic just gives you this golden sheen for a second.
It could be that too. It's
Yeah.
it's like it's too fast to tell. It was mainly like the fact that they get frozen in time that made people think of Kronos. But any one of these dreams somehow comes from him anyway. It's not like it's really Thalia talking to her in that way. Like,
Mhm.
um, I don't think it was really Thalia being like, I really love killing all these dead children at camp when Percy had the dream about her either. I think those sort of dreams are usually Kronos trying to mess with them.
Yeah.
Um, and so I get why people think that it's him.
Yeah, and I think like with Kronos and Thalia, like it's explained as she's his plan B with the fleece plan of like, okay, plan A is we get the fleece, I get to come back with the fleece.
Mhm.
But plan B is it's going to bring back Thalia, and she's another child of the big three that the prophecy could then be about. And I have another chance to control the prophecy. And I think deep down, he probably also knows that Thalia is the most likely to join their cause. Because I don't even Nico, I don't see him being like likely at all. In fact, I'd make him even less likely than Percy.
Yeah. Nico, after Bianca's gone, Nico could have like been tempted to do it out of just like anger and things like that but he was so young that it's honestly hard to know because he was such a little baby that it's hard for me to imagine like 13-year-old Nico being like, let's go kill some people. But I can definitely see how he could be tempted with like holding grudges against Percy or camp or the gods or something. But he was so young that it's hard to ever think about him like that.
Yeah. Just yeah, it's I never see him talked about as a very viable candidate to be one of the children of the prophecy in the same way that people talk about Thalia and
Mhm.
Percy. So it's not something I've ever thought about too hard. It's but yeah, I don't necessarily think it's because he's young, but I feel like he's above the type of manipulation that Kronos uses. Like I feel like he wouldn't fall for it as easy.
Yeah, it would be harder because he would just be like, "Who are you?"
Yeah,
Like
why
kind of like
did I listen to you?
how Percy is just like, "I don't care what you think of me. Go away."
Yeah. So after Annabeth wakes up, Alison comes in and she grabs the fleece off of Annabeth and brings it into the Admiralty suite. I always forget if it's Admiral suite or Admiralty because I
I don't know.
swear, like I got auto corrected and it wasn't coming up on my phone when I did Admiralty.
I don't know. The rich people suite.
Yes. Um, then we also cut to the pier where the yacht has landed and where we see the hippocampi kind of like in the distance swimming away. And there's this scene where Tyson, Clarisse, and Percy are tricking Aiden, who's like the concierge dude from the cruise ship.
And Grover.
Um, yeah, they like, oh yeah, Grover. And they're tricking him to get him lured into a closet to tie him up and grab his little like scythe card. And
Mhm.
so one thing I thought about with the whole Charmspeak thing. So I know that's probably going to come up in the next series of books. It's not something that came up in the first five, but it not working on Clarisse reminded me of the scene in Phantom Menace where Qui-Gon's trying to use the Jedi mind trick on Watto, and he's just like, "Yeah,
What
that
are you
doesn't work on
doing?
me."
Yeah. The Charmspeak thing is a main character in Heroes of Olympus, one of the trio kids, has that power. And so it was fun for everyone who's read those books to even see it mentioned at all. It was like, oh, like we're already talking about that. That's fun. But it's
Yes.
kind of like subtle manipulation of like calming people. Like the person in it in the other books uses it to like calm people down or to like make them listen to you when they normally. It's very much like the Jedi mind trick thing. But Clarisse is gonna be the one. No, that's never gonna work. Never ever gonna work with her. Um, and that Aiden was funny. Aiden was just funny because I just liked how they pictured an Aphrodite son because you usually get to know Aphrodite daughter, so it was fun to see a son and have him look like I don't even know what. Like I don't know. I don't know what to compare him to.
A charismatic frat boy, like the one
Yeah,
that tries to pretend he's friends with everybody, but he still feels like he's probably mean.
and he definitely shops at Banana Republic.
Yes.
That's what it reminded me of. What was I gonna say? Oh, the one thing I noticed the second time I watched it was we always talk about how there's like normal people on Luke's ship,
Hmm.
and that on you can see all of that they're actually all normal people
Hmm.
because they're all just like, oh, is this a port in Long Island? Like, no, Long Island's not a port for a cruise, but they're just like there anyway. But it just shows that they're actually all normal people that just happen to be on the ship because they get rid of all of them to do all their magical fighting.
Yeah. And I still am like, I kind of would have liked to see them a little bit more hypnotized, but partying in a way can be its own hypnotism, I guess. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like you're you're in the vibe of the moment, you're not really paying attention, kind of Lotus Casino vibes.
Hmm.
So Percy and Clarisse have a little argument again here once they get a hold of the key card because Percy, of course, thinks the best plan is let's get Annabeth and then we can figure out how to get the fleece. And he tells Clarisse he has the hat, like he knows exactly which hallway to go down, which is the same one that they snuck out of. It looks like, And so his plan is save Annabeth, save the fleas. Clarisse is just like, we don't even have time for a rescue mission. So I'm just gonna like the rest of the plan is nothing. The rest of the plan is I'm gonna storm in there, with my spear against a bunch of monsters and the best sword fighter at camp.
Yeah. She's exhibiting self-destructive behavior.
Yes.
One of the things I like a lot about Clarisse in this season is that she still she still has all the flaws she has in the books. You just understand why she has them better. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just like that they didn't make her and Percy like BFFs forever. Like they're always going to argue about stupid things like this or just argue. But right here when he uses the prophecy and he's like you're going to end up alone and you're going to lose because you're going to be alone because you've pushed everyone away. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think you should have apologized for that later on in this episode because he's right. Like
Yeah.
she is doing that. Like I say that as someone who has done that many times before. She's she's scared after what happened with her ship. I understand, but to be so like flagrant, like yeah, let's just leave Annabeth on the ship to die, and especially when she was wrong. Like Annabeth didn't think that the fleece was that important until she had like her dream. That's what changed her mind. Annabeth didn't want to be left there to die, and she definitely doesn't want to be left now to die either. And so I was glad that Percy was able to kind of put her in her place, even if she did knock him over. As she I just literally just knocked him over to just
Yeah.
steal the card that way. But one little detail from that scene I did like is how protective Tyson is of him,
Mhm.
because when he falls over, he tells Grover like, I'm fine," and then he sees Tyson coming up and he's like, I'm okay, I promise I'm okay," because he's like ready to go like running after her and tackle her to the ground probably.
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, it's fine. I'll just get it. I'll just find another card another way." Um, but I just like how they set that up with them in this episode because yeah, she is being self-destructive. And it's crazy to think that she can just go on to the ship and what are you gonna do? Like,
Yeah.
what if she had done if she was fighting Luke? Like, would have been a more level fight if she was the one fighting him, most likely 'cause she's older and has been doing it for around the same amount of time that Luke has. But
Mhm.
still, you're not going to stab him, so he would probably do that to you, and then you would have just. What would you have done? Like stuck on that ship? And you also don't know where you're going. Like they've already been on the ship, they know how to get everywhere. You would be wandering around, being like, "Where is the Admiral's suite?" and having no idea what you're doing. Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah.
um,
And
Wait,
I
one
oh yeah.
thing I wanted to remember to say is this annoys me. Today was like the day that like Disney corporate just annoyed me all day long. I cannot find. I saw this on Twitter this morning, and it was one of those things like I hardly ever use Twitter anymore, and so it just kind of shows me things I think I want to see from people that I don't follow because I don't follow anybody anymore. And so I couldn't find this after I saw it and wanted to go back and actually like look at it. But there's an interview where some of the kids were talking about scenes from the season that they knew they had cut out already. And Dior was talking about how they cut out a big part of the scene with her and Ares in the third episode when Ares like says to her, like gets down on his knees like in kind of like in her face and is like when that sea torp like broke your spear, like how do you think that made me feel? And like and like tried to get him to like punch try to get her to punch him and stuff, and they cut all of that stuff out, and I was like, you guys are so annoying, because the only people I can imagine cutting that out would be Disney corporate, and I hate
Mhm.
that they cut that out, um, because that makes so many other things of like her character, like the references she makes, like the references that Percy makes to Ares, that makes way more sense
if people would have actually seen that. Um, I really like her story anyway this season, but it just really sucks that they could have like fully gone there and shown him being like that, because that is what like angry dads are like that with their angry ass daughters. That's the kind of stuff they do. And I really would have liked to see it because those stories don't happen as much, and it's so annoying that they cut that out of episode 3. I don't know why they would, beyond thinking that it's like not family friendly enough or something. Oh, you're a suck.
Yeah. I definitely would have also liked to have seen that scene because I mean, Dior and Adam are just so great, and we only got that one little scene of them together. I would have loved to see them like, actually act off of each other a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think the Percy using the prophecy against Clarisse moment, it just kind of reinforces this like begrudgingly I care about you sibling dynamic they seem to have
Mm-hmm.
this season. And I we've talked about how we feel like that comes from the story where he helps her with the chariot. That was in Demigod Files, right?
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
forget what it's called, but that doesn't even happen yet. But like in that happens in like before um either book 4 or book 5, one of those. But either way, like they kind of have that weird energy even in like the books. Like I mean, he does the same thing in the books. Like he does give her the fleece and says like, this is your quest, you should take it back to camp, this is your thing. And all the other like in the books, Grover and Annabeth are like, why? What? No, don't give it to her. Like they don't like her at all in the books, and thinks that Percy is crazy for doing that. He's like, no, it's the right thing to do, and so he does it. And so they do kind of have that weird where they never get along, but they also don't hate each other, but they just don't get along all the time. Um,
Mhm.
Kind of back and forth sort of thing. This feels much better where in more and this is how I always pictured them. I just picture them as people that like argue for fun,
Mhm.
because it's almost like they don't want to admit that they're friends, or it's more fun for them to just like argue back and forth about
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah.
And that's like what how it comes across. um but yeah, so after this scene is when Grover and Tyson's mission is to find a way for them to get to camp once they leave, because they're actually obviously they're going to have to leave really really fast once they get off the ship. And this is one of those things I think is interesting because they're kids, they don't know how to drive, they don't
Yeah.
have any, and also because they're kids they don't have any money.
Yeah.
So they can't like get like a taxi or an Uber or something like that. So that's actually like their biggest, honestly, that's like their biggest barrier in this
Mhm.
episode, is just figuring out how we actually gonna get to camp, even though we're in the same city where camp is. How are we physically gonna get there? Because oh yeah, because I forget, I think they said this already, that the iris message thing isn't working.
Yes.
um they just kind of offhand say that, and we don't really know why. It just isn't working, and so they can't talk to camp. uh
Yeah.
Sorry, I just was thinking about how it made me wonder about, with there being like moles and stuff at camp, if
Mhm.
they've already started like sabotaging things somehow. Or if where are Tantalus and Dionysus? Like they just came out with a new trailer for the finale, and all you see are demigods beating the crap out of each other. There's like no adults around. And I don't remember ever seeing either one of them in any of like the big shots of everybody in like the big house when Percy's giving his like motivational speech and stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, where are they? Did they just leave? Maybe they just left and were like, bye. Like I don't want to be here anymore. I don't know. But either way, that just makes me wonder if there's something weird going on.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, so I forgot why I wrote this. Alison stopping weird or jealous of a child, please. I forgot what scene exactly
Oh, I
inspired
know what
that,
that
but
is.
that's yeah.
So that's when we go back on the ship, and Alison is bringing the
Oh yeah.
golden fleece to put it on Kronos's sarcophagus, and Luke is like, "I'm in charge. I'm supposed to be the one to do that," and she's like, "Okay, well, you've been using it to heal the enemy, so do you want to maybe like do that then?" Basically what she says, and then he just like grabs it like a weirdo and puts it on, but she is being really weird about a literal child. But
Yeah.
this is one of those things in this episode that where he was like, "She's not the enemy," and I'm like, "Yes, she is. What are
Like,
you
yeah.
talking about, sir? What are you talking about?"
Yeah,
What?
and Tatiana pointed this out yesterday that everything she says Annabeth did to her is stuff that other people did. So the bomb was Tyson, and she knocked
Mm-hmm.
herself off the boat. That like was totally just your momentum, girly.
Mm-hmm.
They got you, and you're mad
Yep.
that they got you. So, but she's not wrong in that, like she's for the other side. She's not gonna switch sides, and
No.
yeah, so I did think that I love Alison in that I love to hate her. And you've said you've already speculated like it would be kind of cool if they keep her and maybe she has some sort of duty that like keeps her around, but maybe she's not a huge character in the next coming seasons. I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of for that more and more the more that I think about it because like she's playing such a good villain, it kind of makes you want to jump into her head a little bit too.
Yeah, and it's like a thing of if they do stuff like we would think with Luke through the years, like seeing them, it would be interesting if like they could have them get along better
Hmm.
as the years go on, or they could have like her start like changing her mind in the opposite way when he starts getting more hardcore into it. You don't really know. Um, but she is just like a she's so interesting to me because she's an Apollo
Hmm.
child, and there's so many Apollo kids. So many of them die in the last Olympian, more
Yeah.
than any other cabin, and especially just like the whole concept that Apollo kids can like they don't go into it too much in the first 5 books because none of the main kids that we know really are Apollo kids. Like you get to know more of their powers in Heroes of Olympus when Will is more of a main character. Um, but their powers, like they can feel people's like they can like see like where you're hurting. They can like feel like your emotions in some way. They can tell when they're sick or when they have an injury just by looking at them and they know how to fix it. And so I'm like, it's so twisted that she's from that cabin and she would have like natural empathy and can like see those things about people. But now she's using it to kill them and hurt people. Like that's so messed up that
Yeah.
I don't want to like lose a character that is like that. And I also just don't want to lose a character that they made for the show because they could use her so much to make other storylines better because she
Hmm.
doesn't exist in the other books. So I don't want to
Yeah.
I just don't want to lose her as a character yet. Like yes, you're supposed to hate her, so I'm like, yeah, that's a success.
Yeah.
Um and I'm like curious about what she does in the finale, but I don't want to lose what they could do with her yet by having her die in the next episode at least.
Yeah.
Um,
Something that's interesting about her being an Apollo kid to me, and this is a saying, like I haven't read the next books. I don't know as much about Apollo kids. But this actually comes to mind because yesterday William asked me, he's like, "Is there an in-universe explanation for the plague?" And I was like, "I have no idea." But Apollo likes to send diseases when he's mad at people for stuff.
yeah.
And so there is a side of Apollo that is very vengeful and like kind of ruthless when you really think about plague and sickness. I mean, we just survived one. So Clarisse is sneaking around. She's in what looks like a little break room in
Hmm.
the cruise ship. And I was thinking, because this is us being like mother hens to the children, is like she probably hasn't eaten since before she picked up Annabeth and Percy, which I think happened in like Virginia.
Yeah.
Whereas, they've now gone to Florida into Bermuda, like the Bermuda Triangle, and now we're back at New Jersey. So she probably hasn't eaten in days.
Yeah, I don't know when. I honestly don't know when the last time Percy had his peanut butter and jelly sandwich,
Mm-hmm.
and they might have eaten something at Cersei's Island, but they offered him stuff and he said no,
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't think he deserved it, basically. So other than that, I don't know when they last ate or anything like that. Um, this part I like that they were playing mytho magic. Um, I liked how some people commented showing like, yeah, Luke's people are also not that old. They're also kids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's like, yeah, they're not that old. They're being trained to kill people, but they're not. They're only a couple years older than the kids that we have on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of, yeah, them sitting down playing like a fun, like their fun D&D card game, and them being so excited about finding a deck because they can do something fun. It just shows how it's like, oh my god, like all these people are so young and they don't like they're not old enough to like fully grasp really what they're doing. Like Luke is the oldest one out of all of these people. So he has a
Mm-hmm.
better idea of the responsibility of what they're doing, but a lot of them really don't. Um, ugh.
Yeah, the Mythomagic reference, it's funny that it comes now because me and William started Titan's Curse and we just got to the part where Dr. Thorne, it's revealed he's a manticore, and then Nico like busts out with they have plus 10 saving throws or something like that.
Mhm.
And it's D&D like speak, but it's nonsense. It's like the stats don't actually make sense to any D&D rules. Um,
Mhm.
but it seems to be a mixture of Dungeons and Dragons and maybe the card game Magic, Magic the Gathering, which
Mhm.
I don't know too much about, even though I had friends that played it.
Yeah, I don't know. I only know a little bit about all the different D&D games. All
Hmm.
I know about Mytho Magic is that people always want them to come out with like an actual game that we could buy. They did have one as like a prop for season one because Grover and Percy are playing with it in like one of the very first episodes or scenes, I mean, in the
Yeah.
first episode. And I remember them saying that they just kind of made up a way to win the game just so they could like do the scene. They just
Hmm.
kind of decided like whoever had like a more points on their monster like won because it's like they got to come up with something and there are no rules for it yet because it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mentioned so like in passing, and like Nico just kind of will randomly bust out like a fact about it or something that they can really do whatever they want with that.
Mhm.
They haven't really written themselves into a corner with it yet. So I wouldn't be surprised if when we get Nico, maybe we get real Mytho Magic.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. So we did already talk about Iris being shut down. Um, Iris is not super close to Zeus familial wise. I believe she's like kind of a second generation Titan, if I'm remembering her parentage correctly. But she does serve the Olympians. So it's kind of weird that she's neutral, in that she's passing messages from the enemy to each other. And yeah, like Zeus shutting down the whole thing versus like stop doing it for the bad guys is an interesting choice. So, I don't know. Is it Zeus power tripping and like now nobody gets this. I'm taking it away from all of you.
I don't know. Maybe. I'm trying to. I can't remember. In one of the books, Percy does something for Iris, and then
Mhm,
he doesn't have to like pay to send a message anymore. She
mhm.
just like will let him send whatever as long as it's him because as like a thank you for whatever. I cannot remember what book that is in, and none one of the ones we've read yet. But at some point that happens. Um, but yeah, that's one of those things everyone's trying to figure out, like, why would that happen or like what could that mean? The only thing I could think of is that because we're going to see Zeus in the next episode, that it's
Mhm.
something to do with him being a little bitch. That's all I can think of.
Yeah. Let's see. So we also get the blackjack scene here. So Percy is he is tricking one of Luke's people into going to like a little snack cart, and then he shuts her in there while he's wearing the invisibility cap. And you hear a horse in the background. He goes and he's like talking to the horse, just like, okay, okay, I'll let you go. And he frees it, says good luck because he has to run. And what of course the fandom had been wondering for the longest time is Blackjack going to have a voice, or is he just going to be like silent? And so we got complete silence, which was an interesting choice.
I said this yesterday, I'll say it again, that I like it. I like that we don't hear him because it gives them things to work off of. And all I can picture now is a completely out of context scene in Titan's Curse or some other season where Blackjack is there and Percy, like, all I picture is the scene starts and it's Percy standing there with like a box of donuts and he's just like giving them to Blackjack with no context whatsoever. And
Yeah.
like the people who haven't read the books would be like, what? And but that kind of stuff I think would be fun. I like things like that where they don't explain absolutely everything in a way that is distracting, because it's one of those things like there are going to be things that are different in the show versus the books. That's kind of the fun of them doing both, to compare those things. And so I feel like those are things that would make people want to go back and read the books and then be excited when they realize that you can like read what Blackjack is saying when you're inside Percy's head. But because
Mhm.
we're not in his head during the show, we can't hear and we're on the outside. It does make me sad. Like it makes me miss being in Percy's head because I want to
Yeah.
hear, and it makes me sad that we're not in his head anymore. But it is part of the show that we're not in his head anymore. So we can't hear what the cute little horse is saying. But it was cute to hear him call him Buddy and then he was like, "Okay, sorry. Blackjack, not Buddy." And just like remembering that conversation from the books.
Yeah, for Titan's Curse, like, because I do think sometimes Blackjack talking is a little necessary, what I ideally would like is if Walker did get to ad lib lines, but then, like, somebody went back and either did subtitles, or I kind of did want a voice. I'll be honest. I wanted a voice.
I just like them adding every season animal subtitles. Season
Yes.
2, guinea pig. Season 3, um, Pegasus and Bessie.
No,
Um,
he can't understand Bessie. She's too ancient.
oh
Or
yeah.
he's too
Okay,
ancient.
fine. So season 3 can be just Pegasus. Season 4 will be something because he always has animal best friends no matter what's going on in his life.
Yeah.
I
We
think
get
this
the
next.
and Annabeth conversation here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah. So, okay. First thing that I want to talk about with this scene in general is we see him kind of like playing with the dagger, and she's like, "Thanks for bringing back my dagger." And it doesn't sound like he's going to give it back to her because he says something like, "Things always have a way to get back to their rightful place."
Yeah,
And
things always end up where they're supposed to. And
yeah,
everyone is like, are you making a joke about how he gets stabbed with that later on?
honestly,
Because
yeah.
I guess that's where it's supposed to end up, is in your there. But I don't think he was going to give it back. But I also think Luke is like delusional or
Hmm.
something. I don't want to say delusional in a way to like lower his, responsibility for what's going on, but it
Yeah.
does feel like he literally thinks like, "Oh yeah, now that Annabeth is on this ship and I, tied her up with rope and she woke up after thinking she almost died because I said she was going to die. She woke up on this mat like by herself, like tied up, you idiot." But even beyond that, I think he like literally thinks like, "Oh, if I just talk to her, she'll just stay with me."
Yeah.
Um, because now that Percy isn't here, I can just convince her. That's something we brought up before, but I do think that he thinks that Percy is the reason why people don't want to join him, or
Mhm.
don't believe him because Percy was supposed to die and he didn't. And so he thinks that Percy is the one messing everything up. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but they don't want to kill their friends. That's why
Yeah.
they're not joining you, not just because of Percy. Gosh,
Yeah, some people don't like murder, Luke. It's okay.
it's a character flaw they have.
So, okay, something else that strikes me here, because we're going to get into the torture part of it soon, is
Mhm.
that the way he talks about how, like, oh, but this is all going to change the world, is going to make the world better. It's very optimistic for a person who is potentially getting tortured into having that stance. Like, it does not sound like it's ingenuine.
No. And it's also just, it's really weird that he said, like we said before, it's really weird that the way that he thinks about it is like, don't give them the golden fleece because then I'll be forced to kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give their hopes up. They're almost ready to give up. And it's like, do you only want people to join you because they're scared and they have no other options? I guess they don't care. Um, but it's also weird to hear him talk about Percy giving the fleece to him as like, oh, he defied the will of the gods. And Annabeth is right for being mad at him and being like, he didn't do that to go against the gods. He did that because he doesn't want his friends to die. It has nothing to do with it. It's nothing to do with the gods. But like the way he put it was like, oh, he, went against the gods too, and so everything's gonna work out. And I will say that when you are actually being physically tortured, um, you're not you're not exactly that optimistic all the time.
Yeah, that's what struck me as odd about his stance here. And okay, so somebody on Threads pointed this out and it's blaringly obvious to me now, but Annabeth is talking to Percy but talking to Luke at the same time, and
Mhm.
she's telling Luke like it's not too late. You can just go get the fleece off of the sarcophagus and bring it to me.
And come back here.
Yes. And so that's when you hear Percy like go out the door and leave because he got the hint very easily. And
Mhm.
it's funny because it works in both instances. Like she actually legitimately wants Luke to make that choice, but at the same time, Percy, this is your chance. I'll hold him here.
Yeah, like she's not like it's interesting because Luke is like trying so hard to give like his big sad eyes and be like, please, Annabeth, join, we're family. And he doesn't say that, but that's very much like the tone of his talking, is he thinks that he's convincing her of something. When she's literally just killing time. She's keeping him busy so
Yeah.
that Percy and Clarisse can go get the fleas without Luke killing them beforehand. That's all she's doing. And so he has no idea. He has no idea that she doesn't care. Like
Yeah.
she cares about him obviously, but she's not really listening to anything he's saying. It's very similar to me with how later when Percy pretends not even really to hear like Kronos, he literally just stands there until he lets him leave, basically. But it's this they're doing the same thing, where the bad side is like, oh, you're gonna be tempted. No, I'm not. Bye. Like we're here for one reason and one reason only, and then we're gonna leave now. Thank you and goodbye. Um, that's I just thought that was funny he thinks that he's about to do something and she's not even really listening. Like, yeah, she is telling him about Thalia, of course, but she's telling him in a way of like, will you stop, like she says, like, you need to stop all of this. Will you just stop doing all of this stuff and just come back to camp and stop and like fix what you've already done? um because
Yeah.
I will say that the thing with Luke and Sea of Monsters that I still have hope will happen in the next episode is that it is the book where it's like that's like the point of no return, which is why Titan's Curse is a lot darker for in general, and because you're not like wondering anymore if he's gonna like come back or anything like that. Because in the book version, it's on the fight on the ship where he tries to kill everybody, and he's very like just no remorse, doesn't care about anything or anyone. He's just fully for Kronos, and they all see how much he is for him. And so after that, they know that he's not going to come back. Um,
Yeah.
this version, I think they're going to do that hopefully in the next episode instead. But it is like a thing where this is like the time where, as bad as what's happened already, like he tried to kill Percy at the end of last season. He tried to kill Thalia. He's been recruiting all these people. But if he went back to camp and like, turned himself in at this point, they could deal with that sort of damage. They could work through that sort of stuff. If he actually like said like, yeah, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done this stuff. Right here is like a stopping point where they could handle the things that already happened, and it wouldn't be too over the edge.
Yeah.
But that's not what happens, and so that after that it's like too over the edge where you just can't go back. But this is the point where he could do that, and they could figure out what to do, and stop this before it goes any further. But
Yeah.
it obviously doesn't do that. But this is the part where they kind of introduced this earlier, where Kronos hurt Percy in the third episode. But this is where they show like him hurting him, because Annabeth is telling him like, Kronos lied to you. Um, Kronos didn't tell you that Thalia could come back. And like if you think about how Kronos is the one that probably influenced the dream that she had where she realized that, it's like he's like manufacturing tension between them so that they will separate. But he makes his like head hurt basically, and so he goes back to talk to him. This is like analysis that probably only somebody like me could like think about or like bring up. But part of what a lot of the stuff in this episode that frustrates me overall with Luke is that the storyline between Kronos and Luke in the books feels like a real storyline of an older person like grooming somebody like Luke, who they can clearly see is like rage filled and angry, and trying to like basically directing them towards the thing that they want them to do so that they don't have to do it themselves. Like there's a million different examples of that right now. Like picture literally anyone that's ever done a shooting, or has gone down like the mega alt-right pipeline to a place where you don't exist. Like that's what people in that world are doing to young boys all the time. And so it was that sort of similar dynamic. And so it felt real. And you could see how he had been manipulated by Kronos, but he was still, it's one of those things like people who get manipulated and then end up doing a school shooting, they are still responsible for the things that they do that hurt people. They're not, even if they've been manipulated to do it, that's part of the thing that sucks about that, is that you wish that somebody would have been able to pull them out before it got that far. But they still are responsible for what they did, even if somebody tricked them or like pushed them into doing it.
Yeah.
This version is more like not like how any of this stuff actually work. Like, the thing about that little interaction that bothered me is that when you have somebody like that grooming you or manipulating you or whatever, you notice that they lie to you all the time. All the time. Like you notice those things often because they're not good at remembering how much like the things they've told you, because they're manipulative and they're abusive, and they know that they have you like completely controlled. And so they don't really need to remember everything they say to you, but those things naturally come up all the time. Like people will tell you something that they said that contradicts something they said to you. Just something they do or say contradicts what they say to other people or to you in some way, even things that they can't really control. And like the best example for like kids usually in abusive situations is the one that they all always say to us, is that if you tell somebody what's going on, that you'll get in trouble too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that people won't believe you, that the police will come after you too. That's a lot of the stuff that they tell us, which is part of why we don't tell anybody. And
Yeah.
so that's contradicted all the time when you interact with normal people who talk about how the police are supposed to help you, or that you're supposed to report things to them, or they're supposed to do those things, and you're like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean? Wouldn't they like try to throw me in jail? It's just like one of those things. And so the idea that this is the first time that Luke has ever been confronted with Kronos lying to him or misleading him about something is insulting to me,
Yeah.
as somebody who's actually, and anyone else that's ever dealt with somebody like that. I'm like, what do you mean? This is like, this is one of those things where I get annoyed, because I can tell that whoever made these sort of decisions with writing the episode, that they haven't experienced these sort of things before, because that's just not how these things work. And I'm not going to hold it against them that they've never experienced that before. I'm glad they haven't. But
Yeah.
also, there's a lot of people like us out there. You can ask us. You
Mm-hmm.
can, I'm sure there are sensitivity readers like that out there. You could ask to make sure that you're doing something that actually makes sense. If you want to actually do a story like that, that fully, you know, makes sense with that. Because it doesn't. It's so like, like when I saw that, I'm like, that is so childish. That is so like childlike. That is so like separated from how those dynamics actually work, to think that he could get this far, like years in, and that this would be a time when Kronos lies to him all the time. Like Kronos probably lied to him about stuff with Percy too,
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And so it's like that's part of the whole thing that gets to you about that, and you just ignore all those things. But it's just so stupid to me to like imagine that this is like the first time that he lied to him about something big like that. I doubt that Kronos told him that Percy was the son of Poseidon when he showed up at camp and told him he's supposed to kill this child. I seriously doubt that he knew how powerful Percy actually was when all of that stuff was going on, or anything else like that. And so it's just silly. Like that's the kind of mistakes you make when you're trying so hard to make one character look innocent, that
Mm-hmm.
you end up making mistakes because you're not really thinking through what you're really doing.
Yeah.
Um, because you can show that, like, show him being affected, because he would have been affected by that no matter what, you know?
Yeah.
Um, that would be hard
So
for him to know.
So with like so I'm gonna call it Kronos' migraine powers just because Tatiana compared it to a migraine yesterday, and I can't stop thinking that. Once again, shout out to Melanated Wise Girl After Show, which we were on for episodes 6 and 7. But um, with with physical versus psychological torture, they're both bad. Psychological torture is obviously the ones that's going to have the most long lasting effects. But at the same time, you can resist psychological torture a little bit longer than you can, well, probably a lot longer than you can physical torture.
Mhm.
Physical torture is going to yield results pretty quickly because not only do you have the aspect of the physical torture itself, but that adds to the psychological aspects of it because then you are in fear of the pain itself.
Mhm. And that's like the number one thing about this episode with Luke that I really didn't like, is that I don't like the idea of giving people the out that um that he that he does all the things he does because he's, you know, in danger, or
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't want to be tortured, instead of it being that he just does it himself. I really don't like that idea that they gave him this out of like, oh, he's doing these things not because he actually decided to, but because he's afraid of being physically tortured if he says no. If you can't tell, I feel very protective of people who've gone through this, because at least a good amount of friends of mine that I've made on TikTok the last few years have gone through that sort of thing actually in real life before. And a mutual of mine, her name's Preeti, like Preeti. I forget her last name right now, but she runs a nonprofit that's just for survivors of childhood torture. It's usually the people that go through that are their parents or family, but mostly parents, like doing it. And so she talks a lot about the differences between torture and like just abuse, like abuse versus torture, and like how you figure that kind of stuff out. But it's just like, yeah, we would want to say no to the. Of course, we don't want to do that, but we do if it means because we don't want to. And so it's just, I don't know. This really bothers me how they show him, even his. I know this is purely like an acting choice, but
Yeah.
even his responses to it, I was just like, that is not that is I don't know if anyone expected this from our YouTube channel, but that is not what it's actually like when you're in a lot of pain. Um, it's
Yeah.
just not like you disassociate like crazy in your mind. Like the reason why I don't really remember, like there's a lot of life that I really don't remember, but I really don't remember hardly anything from like 9 to like 12. There are some things, but a lot of it is like super blurry. And it's because I was in a lot of physical pain a lot. And so you just dissociate so that you don't feel it. That's how you get wild, um, like, pain thresholds now. Like,
Hmm.
like this is like one of those examples. A couple years ago, I had, um, I had like a skin abscess thing, and I hate going to the doctor, and so it finally got, it started like bleeding or something, which just means that it was basically about to be done. But I got scared when it was bleeding. I didn't know what it was. It was just something that was annoying, and so I went to like an ER doctor place, and they saw that it was an abscess and gave me like antibiotics to get rid of it and stuff. Um, and when I was there, they were like looking at me like, didn't it hurt? Like, didn't it hurt? And I just looked at them and I was like, a little bit, but it wasn't anything that bad. And they looked at me like I was out of my mind. And I was like, oh, that's right. I have an extremely high pain threshold that yeah, it hurt, but I just like ignored it. I was like, whatever. I don't like that's annoying, but I'm used to a lot worse, obviously, because I just ignored it the whole time.
Hmm.
Um, and that's how that happens in like actual life when you have that happen. And I realize that this is a kid show on Disney, but this is also why, if you're going to have a character that is going through physical torture in the way that you have him in this episode to try to make me care about him, then I'm going to like expect you to do something that doesn't feel insulting to me and other friends that I have that have actually experienced things like that before. Um, and it didn't feel like that. It felt like they tacked it on to try to make me feel bad for him. And I was like, this isn't enough for me to make me feel bad for him. It very much annoyed that I could tell that they were trying to get me to do that.
Hmm.
But I just couldn't. And I was like, there are so many ways that that could happen. Like that story could happen and it could be done a little bit better. Um, and I don't want to sound like a jerk, but Charlie's acting was just really kind of like too over the top for me. And I understand that they probably told him to be that over the top, but it's one of the things I like when Percy is in a lot of pain from those sort of things too. You can tell that he's in a lot of pain, but it looks more natural, I guess. It doesn't feel
Hmm.
like so. People don't do that. Like when you're in a lot of pain, you don't like writhe around on the floor and start like rolling around on the floor and things like that, like he was doing at the
Yeah.
end of the episode. It's just you do the opposite. You like disappear inside your body where you can't feel like the pain anymore because it hurts so bad. Um, and so it was just those little things that just made me not be able to take it seriously. And then, of course, because it's me, I was annoyed that they were doing this with Luke and making, like, the mental stuff with Kronos was bad enough. I don't think they needed to make it worse by also introducing this other side to it either, I guess.
Yeah, so in our opinion, this fandom already has a problem with too many Luke apologists, and it's a weird stance to have in this day and age. I'm sorry to be the person to break it to you guys, but yes, Zeus is also a dictator in his own right, but Kronos is a worse one. And like, Percy, I never see him as being for the Olympians. Like, even though that's
Mm-mm.
technically the side he's fighting on, that's not why he's there. He's there for his friends. And
Yeah,
so,
and to
yeah,
like add, I can add on to that a little bit because they put out a trailer today for the finale with some new scenes and stuff in it. And one of the things they put in it was this voiceover of Percy saying like there's no hero, that there's no like divine person that's going to show up to help us.
yeah.
It's like just us. Like we have to do this. And I posted a video where I just said, like, this is what I mean when I say that Luke delays years, for years, like the things that demigods could have done together, by him causing all of these problems. But that is like, that's Percy. I was like, that is Percy. Like, I heard that and I was like, thank God, because that's exactly his characterization is he doesn't care about the gods necessarily. He doesn't like he is to me, I always like Percy because he's one that knows how to like navigate these systems basically to get
Mhm.
what he needs out of it. And that's like what I think about. Like that's my relationship with authority is I'm like I don't like authority. I don't want to give them excuses. I don't want to like be them, you know, in the way that Luke wants to be them one day, which is part of why I think he was susceptible to Kronos in the first place. But with Percy, he is like, I don't want to be like he's like we know he says no to being a god, but that's the most obvious choice ever that he would say no to something like that. He doesn't want to be someone in authority. He doesn't want to be in charge necessarily. He doesn't want to be one of the gods or whatever. He doesn't like he doesn't like the gods, but he also understands like they're a part of this world and I can't just get rid of them without making everyone else's life a lot worse than it already is. And
Mhm.
so instead of just like laying waste to like everything, including the things that they have that are good, um, why not just like work with the system we have now and find ways to improve it? Because nothing is going to be magically fixed overnight, but at least we can try that to make everyone's lives better. And that's basically what he is always trying to do. Is just try to make every demigod's life better, and it definitely works. But that's why I always like him because I'm like, yeah, that's actually how you do this stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can't like just you can't become one of the gods or you can't get rid of them. Like it doesn't work that easily because most of the time people, if you just do that, will get more hurt in the process of trying to do that
Mhm.
than otherwise. And so yeah, like Percy isn't one that would likes the gods. I don't know, it so annoys me that that is somehow become like the conflation that
Yeah.
that if you don't like the gods, you have to be on Luke's side. And I'm like, what? Who do you think Percy is? Like that's why we made that reel a couple like a month or so ago of all the times, and those are just the ones that I had saved on my phone of all the times where he's telling the gods they suck.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more that from the episodes that have already aired that I just didn't have saved. But there's a lot. There's because he doesn't like them either, and it's weird that people have like I understand where the conflation comes from. They're trying to make the it more black and white than it actually is. But it's not that simple.
Yeah.
Um it's really not. I swear to God.
Yeah. I mean, Percy does what he can to hold them accountable in the end. And that's as a 16-year-old boy, you know? probably could have asked for more with that, like getting Zeus to swear on sticks, but even that, I'm sure, and again, I haven't read the next books, but I'm sure part of the reason the events happen is because that people are mad that he did that. You know,
I was
people.
going to say they punish him in Heroes of Olympus for doing that.
Mhm.
Just for like the little bits that he asks that he's able to get from them. Um, so, okay, where are we now? That was a fun rant.
Uh,
Um,
so let's talk about Clarisse's badass moment because these are all broken up like together, but like we can smush them together. So she decides that she's gonna go on a rescue mission after all because while she's hiding out in that little break room, she overhears Alison come in and tell the rest of the people like. Kronos ordered me to take out Annabeth, who's coming with me. We got to get this like person who betrayed us, and Luke may be mad, so I need backup. And so she decides in that moment she's going to go help Annabeth. And she is luckily able to access their weapons because they have a bunch of spears and axes and swords and stuff lying around in this room. So for all of the people who care about the fighting stuff, she now has the spear she came on with, which I'm not sure if that's still the broomstick spear, and then she grabs another spear, and then she grabs an axe. So those are the weapons of choice that she goes on with.
yeah, and I liked how so the one part we skipped over it that just to make this all make sense for anyone listening is Alison is in the room with Kronos.
Yes.
And Kronos, we don't hear it, but he very clearly tells her that to go kill Annabeth, while Luke is coming back up to talk to him, basically, um, and just get rid of her. And so she goes down. That's why they're like all of a sudden like, okay, let's go find her and kill her. She runs off to hide, and then I love how Clarisse kills the Lastrygonian, and because he's a monster, he actually like evaporates. And so it makes them all look at her like, "Hi, how you doing? Have you ever fought an Aries child that is really angry and stressed out and scared and really needs a like a physical release?
Yeah.
You're about to figure out what that's like now."
Yeah. She also, like, at the end of the fight, she says, I needed that, which is so funny that you, like, mentioned the physical release part because, yeah, she definitely needed that. The fight ends up being all of the people who came down to find Annabeth, and Annabeth and Clarisse, you know, like they're kind of working together. Annabeth only takes out one of them, which was that Andrew?
Yeah, I was gonna say the person that Annabeth takes out and gets to flip over her shoulder is Andrew Alvarez.
Yes, and she stomps him in the face.
Yeah, that was
Um,
great.
yes, so she has her little badass moment like that. Clarisse also takes down everybody else, and they make their way up to the top deck.
Going on. I'm laughing because this is when Percy um walks in and Kronos tries to tempt him. And he's
Yes.
like, "Ooh, I'll tell you the prophecy, and if you let me." And he starts saying the actual prophecy,
Yeah,
and
even
Percy is
though
just like,
Percy
"I've
decided.
decided," and just takes it as soon as he's able to move. He doesn't care. Like
Mhm.
that's like the thing with like people. I saw people like saying like, "Oh, is he gonna like realize at a certain point, like when he talks to Chiron, if he has a chance to talk to Chiron or Poseidon or something in the next episode, where he realizes that that actually was the real one?" Like, sure, but that's not really gonna do anything for like for Percy. He doesn't care. Like
Yeah,
he doesn't
so
care. Like
well
the
this
thing I said on Tatiana's podcast, I feel like was a good thing for me to. I was like, wow, that actually makes a lot of sense. Where did that come from? When I said it was that he already knows that the gods lie all the time. Like in when he's leaving camp and Hermes is telling him to leave, he straight up tells him, "I know you're lying to me because this is how this family works." And so Percy isn't somebody that would be like scandalized and would think about turning against the gods by being introduced to the idea that they lie, because he knows that already. Like,
Yeah.
he's already a jaded kid to begin with about these. He doesn't like them from the beginning. And so he already knows that they lie all the time. And so it doesn't have the same effect on him as
Yeah.
it would have on other people. He doesn't care. Um, but the part that made me the part that made me laugh picturing it again was when Luke walks in and sees him, and it's so funny how he walks in and sees Percy just standing there holding the golden fleece, and he's just like, "Hello."
Yes.
Like, what do I do now? It's like, oh crap.
Wait,
Um
so really quick, when Kronos is talking to Percy though, I love that Percy stands up to him, which
mhm,
again, I've never believed Percy when he was crashing out and he said, maybe I would tear down Olympus, because he tells Kronos in this like, if you think I'll help you destroy Olympus, you're wrong. Like, and Kronos, I love the fact that Kronos is like, I'll tell you the prophecy if you leave the fleece, but then tells him anyway. But where Percy cuts him off is like exactly that soul reaping part too. So we're
mhm.
not necessarily losing anything in him knowing so much of the actual prophecy itself.
No, the soul reaping part is the part that is the worst part. And so it got cut off before he heard like the super traumatizing part, which
Yeah.
thank God. I'm really glad that he didn't hear that part of it, because that's the part that's the worst. Um, but either way, I'm still laughing. Like remembering Luke and him just staring at each other, and he's just like, I didn't have time to put the hat back on before Luke walked in. And it's just funny because Luke looks at him and he's like, you were the one that the door was you. And this is another thing from this episode that I was like, can we get a grip of when he was like, Annabeth lied to me? And I was like, you have lied to her every single day since you were 16.
Yep.
Why are you suddenly scandalized by the idea that she would lie? Of course she's lying to you, you weirdo. You're wanting to go to the camp that you grew up in and kill everybody. Why is that surprising to you? Because you're so stupid. Like, because he thinks that it is like a very like abuser thing to do, to be like, how dare you lie to me when they lie to you every single day of your life. And it's just like,
Yeah.
did you not think that I was physically capable of thought? Like, no. You were so sure that you had me, like, manipulated, that she wouldn't do it. I honestly don't think it ever occurred to him that Annabeth had the capability of lying to him, um, to help Percy get away from him, or get the fleece away from him. And it was just, it still bothers me how they have this set up in this way of like, it just really bothers me, the idea that they have of um what's his name, Mike, who does the Newest Olympian podcast. He also really hates Luke too.
Yeah.
And he I didn't listen I don't I want to always listen to his podcast, but he's always doing a book or so ahead of where we are, so I can never listen. And it's hard when you do your own one to go back and listen without feeling like it's going to somehow influence how you talk about things with like prior episodes. But I know that he's the one that hates Luke. He mentioned how much he hated Luke when he interviewed Charlie. And so he just mentioned offhand that he hates his character, and just asked him about everything else but Luke. Basically, he
Yeah.
just asked him all these questions about himself, basically, because he just
I love
didn't.
that.
He a little bit about Luke, but most of it was just about asking him about acting, or like fun stories from set and stuff like that. Because he's not a Luke apologist. He doesn't want to. He's not going to sit there and talk too much about Luke.
Yeah.
But he said in like the little description of his podcast episode, he says to me, the end of this episode is Luke being like fully like bad Luke. Like, the end of this episode is supposed to be him fully transitioning to the full on like villain now in the next episode. And I want that to be true. I just really, I still it still bothers me, the idea that the thing that like pushed him seemingly over the edge was Annabeth lying to him, or like, or Percy and Annabeth, their like bond or whatever, that Annabeth has a bond with Percy that he feels threatened by. Even if that does make sense, because Luke is definitely jealous of that in a really creepy, weird way, since he's like,
Yeah.
again, an adult. They're 13 and he's 20 right now. What's going on? But I just don't like that, the implication of that, of that the
Mhm.
reason why he fully went bad is because of something Annabeth did. It just doesn't, it feels just, I don't know, I just don't like that feeling of feeling like it's all your fault
Yeah.
that I did this or whatever. I don't even want people to like go there and even like entertain that idea. And it's just one of those things, like, we haven't really talked too much about the specifics of the stuff that overall bothered us when it comes to the Luke stuff, I guess. But I mean, like, writing wise, is that the writing of this episode bothered me so much. Like, I don't want to watch this episode again. Like, I feel like I'm just going to skip it every time we get to when I
Yeah.
rewatch this season, which I'm gonna a lot once the season's done. But I don't want to watch it because it feels like everything with this episode was set up in order to like victimize Luke and to
Mm.
like make him look empathetic or make him look not as responsible for things. Like every decision they could have made, they show it in a way where you're supposed to, like, the way that he says that, you're supposed to be like, "Oh, isn't that sad that
Yeah.
that Annabeth lied to him?" And because they play it off like he was being serious about thinking that Annabeth would join him, or they like are playing it off more like, at least at this point, it seemed like Charlie was more playing it like that Luke is like delusional and actually thinks that like this is going to save the world and things like that. I don't think that Luke actually ever thought that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that, like, people who are doing these, like, destructive, violent, like, warpath, rage-filled moments like Luke, they don't actually think that they're doing that. They just are angry,
Yeah.
and it feels good to, like, let out that rage on a person. Like, kids that are doing school shootings don't think that if they kill everybody they go to school with, that the world will be a better place. They don't think that at all. They don't. They don't
Yeah.
at all.
Quite
And
a few
so,
of them, it's almost chaos in a weird way too, of like,
mhm.
people are gonna remember me because I did this.
Yeah, it's more like a rage thing of I'm mad at the world. I want to go out like hurting as many people as I can so people can feel the hurt that I feel all the time, because they get thinking that like nobody else can feel it, which of course everybody can. But they start thinking that, and um we haven't talked about this yet, but we can now. The like I was just thinking about the dehumanization of other people. That's
Yes.
why a lot of like the when Charlie Kirk died, a lot of the memes that people use from that part of the internet, um, to indoctrinate kids and things like that into that way of thinking, those like memes and YouTube videos and like men with podcasts and all those sort of things, Charlie Kirk's videos, those are all things that are meant to dehumanize the people that you would be hurting by
Yeah.
going all in the actions. Like, it's easier to think that like queer people are wrong and don't deserve anything, or women don't deserve anything, or leftist thinking people are horrible, if you're constantly listening to people describing them as these horrible, messed up people that are just doing everything wrong and are the cause for every problem you have in your life, and they're the worst people ever. And that's all, when that is all you ever hear, that stuff starts getting your mind where you don't see them like people anymore. That's
Mhm.
like when people talk about dehumanization, that's what they mean. Like, even in
Yeah.
like religious things do that. Like, I could go on forever about the Mormon church. I say that because it's not a church, it's a cult.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew Alvarez, that you were in a cult for a while in your life. But um, like with the Mormon church, a lot of like more controlling religions like that, they will talk about people and say like, oh, if you're gay, you're going to hell and you're evil. And if you do this, you're evil and you're going to hell. If you are in our church, you're damned forever. And no matter what you do, nothing that you do or say can possibly save you. And so it makes you look at that person like an enemy, as like somebody that's a threat to you and your livelihood and your safety. And so when you then see bad things happening to those people, you see like homeless people on the street that are struggling, you see like poor people that don't have any money, you don't feel bad then about not helping them, because you are told over and over again that they are less than, because if they were in your church, they would be taken care of. And they are homeless because they did something wrong and they're being punished by God. Um, that's like where that's how people who are in those sort of organizations or churches or whatever end up doing these like very monstrous things, because they get told over and over again that the people that you see going through bad things somehow deserve the things that they do. Even like new age spirituality people telling people that the reason why you get cancer is because you did something wrong in a past life or something, and you're being like harmed, or that you like have like bad thoughts in your like negative thoughts in your mind, and it manifests as like cancer or diseases or something. That's like a thing that a lot of new age people say, because that immediately means that if somebody dies from cancer, you don't feel bad, you don't
Yeah.
feel sad that they die, because you think they must have done something to make that happen. Like one of those people said that to me
Oh,
in like 2020, in like 2020, um 2019, 2020, I wanted to do like Reiki. That's like how I got into tarot and stuff, because my body hurt so when I was at my I went to a like an outpatient treatment program, and one of the
yeah.
things that happens when you start like processing big time trauma is that it makes you more aware of your body. And I all of a sudden realized that my body was in pain and like sore all the time, and now that I could actually feel it, and I something about processing it too makes like pain happen just in like your muscles, I think, from not being from being so tense and then like letting it go or whatever. I can't
Yeah.
do massages because I can't have people touch me. And so Reiki was something that I actually heard about in my program. We had a yoga class and he mentioned it as something you could try, because they don't like touch you, but it leaves you feeling the same kind of idea as a massage, where you feel more relaxed and your body doesn't hurt as much. So I went to like a Reiki place, and the Reiki person, I got a tumor on my back in 2020 that I had to have two surgeries to get it removed. It was a whole huge thing. And I went there when that was going on, and she told me that I got that on my back because I didn't tell my sister some aspect of abuse stuff. And she was telling me that I needed to go and like tell her that. And I left and sat in the car, and I was like, I'm not telling her that. Like, that's
Yeah.
a horrible idea. Like Cassie and I, my sister and I weren't even really talking. We weren't talking at that point. That was a couple months where we weren't talking. And so I was like, that would be, no, I'm not doing that. And I never went back to that person again. But some people believe them when they say stuff like that. But either
Yeah.
way, this is a whole thing to talk about how, um, in one of the pictures from that they put out on the press website, and
Mhm.
when Clarisse is fighting Alison, you can see the dummy that Luke's people have on that level in their ship, and that it is like literally it's child sized. Like it's
Yeah.
short. It looks like it's like a 12-year-old kid. And it has on like the Camp Half Blood shirt, and it has on like the hats that they wear um
Yeah.
in Capture the Flag and stuff. But it literally looks like a 13-year-old kid, like, because it's shorter. It's much shorter than they are. Like they're at the same level as the dummy when they're like leaning over fighting. And it's just that's the kind of dehumanization that's going on
Yeah.
with Luke's people, with Luke himself, and also with anyone who joins him. They don't see the kids at camp like humans anymore. And so those things do get to you. And so it's weird that Luke ever could like still see like Annabeth, like even because of all the traumatic things they went through, feeling like that connects them somehow, and like Thalia and all that kind of stuff. It's almost like intriguing to me that there's a part of Luke that still even sees them like a person, because he definitely doesn't see Percy like a person anymore.
Yeah.
And he doesn't see anyone else at camp like a person anymore. And everybody at camp loved him in the first season, and so he knows all those kids, but somehow the trauma that he went through with Annabeth, there's still something, but I just don't like the idea of that dehumanization fully taking effect because
Mhm.
of something he thinks that Annabeth did wrong. I hope that they make it clear in the next episode that wasn't her fault, or it
Yeah.
wasn't really her, that it was just him. But that's where a lot of that stuff like kind of comes from. That's how the chrono stuff, that's why I didn't think that you needed to add more to like the
Mhm.
chrono manipulation, because the mental stuff keeps people locked. That is the stuff that keeps you locked more than anything else. Like I wasn't like trapped in the situation I was with my dad because of the like physical side of stuff. Like obviously that was horrible. That's what
Yeah.
made it like, that's the stuff that like when I did end up going to therapy for a little while, it was because I was losing it from that stuff becoming too much. But it wasn't that. That was like the end. Was the end. I don't know if it was the end, but closer in my mind, at least closer to like the end, because I was older. But
Mhm.
I'm describing myself when I'm 12, saying that I was older. So take that for what that means. But still, um, it wasn't the thing that kept me like stuck in that situation, wasn't the physical like torture. It was the mental stuff. That's the stuff that is the most damaging. That's the stuff that still makes me surprised that people want to talk to me, and that people would ever like me, and that people could conceivably like me. Like, I have to read our comments on YouTube multiple times when they're nice, because I'm genuinely like expecting them not to be, that I have to like stop myself and reread them again to make sure that I read them right. And like those are things left over from my dad saying all these horrible things about me so that I wouldn't tell anybody what he was doing. Those are the things, like he's been dead since 2014, and his voice is still in my head. Like the beliefs that I have about myself are still there from him, and I'm honestly not sure that they'll ever completely leave.
Yeah.
Um, because he was my dad, and it's just hard when you have those beliefs embedded in you in those years when you're like forming your identity. It's especially when it was like so severe, it's really hard to like completely let them go, but I definitely am aware of them in a way of like, I know that's not really true. Even if I'm thinking that, I know like other people wouldn't agree with me at this point, and I believe them. Even if I don't understand why, I get that. But it's just that stuff is the stuff that permeates in your head more than anything else. This is why I think Tatiana told us that the writer for this episode is a Reylo fan.
Yeah.
And honestly, when she said that, I was like, you know what? Everything about this episode suddenly makes sense. And even in like the third episode, the way that she makes Luke sound like a messiah or something.
Yeah.
Like everyone is welcome here. Like he's
Yeah.
like the beginning like video of like entering a cult or something, but without like the bad side. But like even that, and that mixed together with Percy being like, let's go kill Luke, makes sense if that is accurate, because that is kind of how Reylo fans see those sort of like dynamics.
Yeah.
Um, if you're a Reylo fan, it means that you like Kylo, which means that you have to find a way to excuse him murdering literally 6 million people in the first movie.
Yeah.
6 million. You sit there in the first movie and watch him blow up a planet, and they say that 6 million people live there, and he just sits there and watches it explode. Uh, and so if you're gonna want him anywhere near Ray, then you have to find a way to explain why he would do that and make him actually. It's literally the same story. People made up fan fiction about Kylo being like abused or whatever, the same exact sort of way with Kronos with Snoke. But they just made it a lot more severe. They told themselves that Han and Leia were abusive parents when they're not. And so it's like it feels like the same story because it is she's kind of like repeating the same themes. Um, and it was just really weird. I don't know. This episode was just very weird. It was honestly the only one they've ever made where I could like tell what the writers were wanting to do, where it like superseded what was happening on screen for me. That I was like these because I didn't say this yet, but it was just there's storylines that I felt like should have happened, but didn't happen because that wouldn't make it so obvious that Luke was like supposed to be like the victim here. You're supposed to feel bad for him. This was his episode for you to like feel things for him. Like it would have made more sense if Luke tried to recruit Annabeth and went hard on all that stuff. You would still have empathy for him. You could still see that he was being manipulated by Kronos, by him like telling her all these things that he thinks are true and what he thinks about the gods and what he thinks about Kronos and all this kind of stuff. You could still have those things happen, but it wouldn't be as obvious.
Yeah.
It would be like a more nuanced story, which I think would be better, but it wouldn't be as like super duper obvious. And so they didn't do that, even though it felt like that's what this whole season was going towards.
Yeah.
They didn't do that because they wanted to be absolutely sure that you felt really bad or you're supposed to feel really bad for him. And it just is annoying. Like all these things that I thought could happen or would happen or just a confrontation that they have just like doesn't happen the way that it should because
Yeah.
the story like wants you to feel bad for him so badly that they have to show you things from that point of view and it just like cuts things off. And so like even with the Percy and Luke fight was really like cool. Like
Mhm.
um I think their behind the scenes video came out today
Yeah.
and I didn't actually watch it, but
Did you watch Cameron Silas's video about the fighting styles?
mhm. And like yeah, that
Something really interesting that I learned from the stunt department while on set is that Percy's fighting style is like basically directly derived from Luke's because Luke taught Percy how to fight. What Percy knows so far about sword fighting all essentially came from Luke. But there are things that Luke didn't teach him that Luke is using on Percy now in this fight. Like for example, when Luke kicks Percy in the stomach and Percy like literally has to take a second and catch his breath because he basically got like the wind knocked out of it. Like Luke is no longer fighting by like camp rules with camp honor. Like Luke is fighting dirty and that's something that Percy has to step up to. Like what we're going to see from here on out is that when Luke fights, he's no longer going for just injury. Like he is going in for the kill. And that is a very serious wake-up call to Percy. I think Percy gets a little taste of that in this fight, but I think he's going to get an even bigger taste of that next episode.
Fighting choreography itself is really great here. I love just like watching it happen. A lot of people have pointed out that the cap falls on the ground in the Admiralty suite, and so it unfortunately gets left with Luke. We'll see how that ends up panning out, like, because we do know Annabeth is like, I mean, spoiler for people that are show only, but like Annabeth's gonna end up on the boat again, like very
mhm.
so it can stay there and that wouldn't leave too much like that wouldn't mess up the story too much in my opinion, and because they're kind of gearing us up for a battle in the next one, it almost even makes sense that he might have it and use it.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
yeah, it's interesting
that's
to note
this
it's there.
yeah, that's the scary part to think like who has that now? I don't want anyone on Luke's side to have a hat that makes them invisible
Mm-hmm.
when they're trying to sneak into camp and kill children. The fight choreography was really cool. I did see in the behind the scenes video, I didn't want, for whatever reason, I didn't get the notification for it, but I did see other people saying that
Mm-hmm.
Walker and Charlie trained for it for like a month,
Yeah.
to learn like all of the choreography, because I did like how like Percy jumps on top of a table and all that kind of stuff to try to get away from him. It just, I always like Percy's fighting because it's very like we said before, Percy doesn't really like to fight per se. He
Mm-hmm.
has to, but he doesn't have like a set style like that. He just kind of knows the basics and then does what he thinks works in the moment. And
Yeah.
so Luke is like trying to like is like bringing his sword like down, and so he just jumps on the table so that he can't do that anymore.
Yes.
But the thing from the fight that I thought was really great too is that the reason why it stops, or like why Percy kind of wins, is because the sarcophagus starts falling over, and
Yes.
so Luke has to stop to like put it back, and Percy runs away. That's like actually how that should go. Like Percy can't beat Luke right now, and so and like how is he going to get out of this room without somebody else like coming to help him or something? Um,
Yes.
so that being it was like not only fun because he gets to get away, but also fun for like the symbolism of
Yeah.
that he gets away because it's like he's an undead creature. What do you think is going to happen to him if his sarcophagus falls over? I don't want to see his gross body, but still.
Yeah. All the parts can't be there yet, so
No.
I don't
Ew.
even want to know what that looks like. But
Ugh.
yeah, so this gives Percy the opening to get away, and for a second there, they let us believe that he's actually gonna make it because we see like he's mashing the buttons on the elevator because that's the only way up or down.
Down. They're at the
Down,
very
yeah.
top.
And so he's like desperately pressing the buttons, and right as the elevator's about to close, Backbiter comes in through the crack in the elevator and stabs Percy in the side.
Yeah. And Walker did a really good job in this scene, like
Mm-hmm.
making this look real. Like his hands were even shaking and stuff when he was trying to like pick up the golden fleece. But ugh, this was also one of those things that annoyed me like when I said that I didn't like how they made so much of this episode, like it gave Luke a lot of outs for the things that he was doing. This
Mm-hmm.
was a big one for me, is that Luke does stab him. That, yep, that's true, but he stabs him and like he's immediately fixed. And so it doesn't necessarily matter like what Luke thought, like if Luke knew was even thinking. Like I don't think Luke was thinking
Yeah.
about anything. I think he was just like trying to stop him from getting away and was like mad and just wanting to hurt him. And like somebody said to me that they thought that scene was supposed to show that his rage like was still out of control. And I was like, is that what that scene was supposed to be? Because it didn't come off that way to me, purely because it's fixed in the same scene that it happens in. Like Percy's able to heal himself with the golden fleece, and so thankfully he doesn't bleed to death in the elevator. But it's also
Yeah.
the fact that for the rest of the episode, people notice that he's bleeding or he tries to hide it. Like I love so much when he hides that he's bleeding from Tyson and his mom. When
Mm-hmm.
he's like running towards the car, when he sees Tyson, he like covers it. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my god, I love you so much. But it doesn't, like, people don't talk about it. He doesn't even tell anybody that Luke
Yeah.
tried to like almost killed him. He makes jokes about it, of course, because he's Percy Jackson. Um, but like usually when things like that happen, even if it's fixed, it
Mm-hmm.
happens so that the other characters will know that like this is somebody that's capable of something like this. And we haven't talked about the godforsaken runtime problem.
Yeah.
Um, but this is why I want to like fly to Disney corporate and just punch them in the throat, because why are they making the episodes so short? It is them. It is them like not giving them enough money or forcing them to do it because of money. Give them more money, you stupid idiots. I
Yeah.
don't understand. The time for the finale episode came out. The episode is 40 minutes with credits, which means that it's only like 2 minutes longer than this episode was. And it's just like, why? What do you mean that a finale episode is less than 40 minutes long? And it's just a lot of this episode, it felt like every storyline needed another, like one more scene. Like,
Yeah.
I felt like we needed another scene between Luke and Annabeth and Percy, even when they were on the ship before they got off. I felt like you needed another one between like Clarisse and Percy for their storyline. I just felt like, and like this thing of Percy being able to tell all of them that like Luke stabbed me. I would have died if I didn't have the golden fleece with me. But he did it anyway, and just to show like that he's willing to kill Percy, who is 13, and just to show like how he's still that he that's like one of those things, like that's too far for Percy's best friends. That would be too far for them to think that Luke could come back anymore. And it felt like that's what that scene was supposed to be, and it felt like it was cut somewhere because they made them make the runtime so short, and I don't understand. This is your number one show. It
Yeah.
made you so much money during season one. And I know that studios are like this, but why do you suck so much? Like, this is not the production. This is Disney. What is wrong with you? Why the show that made you the most amount of money, you didn't give them a bigger budget for season two. You're making their episodes shorter than they were in season one to try to,
Mhm.
like, so that you don't have to give them more money. It's just ridiculous. Like, what have they done where they don't deserve to get more? And it's just like, how are they supposed to tell these stories the way that they want to if they're being like stuck where they have to keep the scenes that are important for the plot basically in, and like the character development scenes are the ones that end up getting cut because they don't let them have enough time. Just let them have enough time.
Seriously.
Like, that's why they cut, like, I'm sure that's why they cut like the Aries Clarisse part. It's why the other scene they cut was Annabeth talking to Thalia's tree in the second episode about the quest and like crying, like being scared about how they're gonna, leave camp and save them when she has to lie to Percy and stuff. And it's like, what? Why would you cut that scene? And like Leah mentioned it because they said it was like repetitive, and it's like that's because you're putting such a limit on how long their episodes can be. And
Yeah.
this was I will say that this was the first one where I felt like the runtime, like I could literally like feel it that it was too short. The
Yeah.
other episodes I didn't notice or anything like that. I didn't feel like they didn't have enough time in the other ones that were shorter like this. This was the first one, but because it was also this one, it just felt very aggravating. And now it's just something that I keep thinking of that I'm like, how are they going to do all the other stuff they're going to do in future seasons if they won't let them have like an entire 40 minutes to do everything?
Yeah. Yeah. So, from here, it jumps back to Clarisse and Annabeth. And so Annabeth thanks Clarisse for going down to save her. Clarisse tells her Percy went to go get the fleece. And she's like, do you really think he can get it on his own? And right on cue, an alarm sounds. And she's like, that doesn't mean he has it. And so they decide, like, okay, let's go back up Percy, wherever he is, because somehow we know he's in trouble. They get outside to like the deck, and there is a group of Luke supporters there, Luke followers, Kronos people. I have no idea what to call their group. And BLACKJACK makes another appearance, so he knocks them off into the water. And it gives basically an opening. Percy gets there, and Annabeth's like, that's Luke's Pegasus. And Percy's like, no, that's BLACKJACK. He's a friend.
Yeah, that's my horse now. That's not Luke's horse. That's mine. Um, the look that that Clarisse and Annabeth share was really funny. Tatiana made a post of that, of both of them being like, when did he have time to make friends with a horse? um, but I did really like this scene with Percy, like telling, even though I didn't feel like he needed to apologize to her, because I feel like she needed a little bit of
Yeah.
like a wake up call. It still was very nice for him to say, like, I shouldn't have used your prophecy. And you can take the golden fleece back to camp. You're not going to stop for any reason. And so you take it back. We'll get back like eventually, like in a little bit, to let her just like finish out her quest. Like this is technically hers, and she gets to. And I liked how even though they changed stuff, she still gets to be the one to bring it to camp,
Yeah.
instead of him, and that he would want her to have the chance to do it.
Yeah, and I love that she's like, so you're just gonna let me win? He's like, this isn't about winning, and it's your
Yeah.
quest. So what I like about the apology, just, thinking about Percy as a model for young boys, is that I do think it's a good apology.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he takes accountability for what he did and how it affected her in a way where it doesn't come off as fake. It comes off as like, I'm being very self aware right now, and I'm really sorry I did this to you because I like that was shitty. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
And
And
I
so I
will
do like it
say,
for that reason.
when you think about it, especially for young boys, him saying, like, you trusted me with this and I took advantage of what you trusted me with, like, that just the idea of understanding when people tell you things, that's like showing that they trust you and you need to
Yeah.
understand. That's like some stuff that younger boys can sometimes not understand because nobody teaches them emotional intelligence. And I especially do like how he's like, yeah, this isn't like a winning or losing. We're not competing. This is not a competition.
Yeah.
We're just on a quest. We're on the same team. I like he never would think like it was her versus him or anything like that. They're on the same side. And
Yeah.
but I Clarisse with a dad like Aries wouldn't like think like that, because Aries is like in a battle with everyone else in his own family at every given moment. And
Yeah.
so she would think like, I have to be the one to win so that Aries can win over Poseidon. And Percy's just like, I just want everyone at camp to be okay. I don't care if I'm the one that does it. As long as it happens, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
But
So
it
what's
is
the
that's very much not how, I guess, to talk about Percy being like demigod first. That's not how the other demigods really like think about that stuff. They're supposed to be competing with each other, and he doesn't want to do that. And so
Yeah, he
that's
doesn't
how
care
that
about
works.
competition. I love that for him though. And so Clarisse gets to leave with the fleece on Blackjack. And I also love that he recognizes like you're the best person to do this because nothing's gonna stop you.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, we've talked about him as a leader, and this comes up a lot more like later books, but here we're starting to see it of like, I see your strength, I see the good thing about you, and so I'm going to praise that and trust you with it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So here's where we get a little nod to Paul Blofeld, which is so amazing. So, Tyson and Grover, as we talked about earlier, were on a mission to find a ride back to Camp Half Blood. And Tyson, it's really funny because he says it in a way where, like, you're thinking that he's going to pray to Poseidon or something. I wrote it down. He was
Oh
like,
yeah.
um, somebody oh, maybe we should call on somebody stronger, more wise. And then they just cut to them on the phone with like Sally. she's shopping in this little like this really tiny shop and having a conversation where we talk about this on Melanated Wise Girl After Show. Gonna keep shouting it out.
Mm-hmm.
Where the lady at the deli that's overhearing the conversation gives her a crazy look because as she's talking to Tyson, who's like, I guess this is Tyson's way of playing it cool, is just like he's trying to chit chat with her normally, even though he has
Mm-hmm.
to ask for a ride. And she's like, why would you need a ride? And then all of a sudden, Grover's on the phone And I love that this is when Sally's like, oh no, something's going wrong. Because immediately when she hears Grover's voice, she puts down her basket. And so she's like, wait a second, you're supposed to be like off in
Across the
Japan.
world.
Yes, across the world.
Arian's acting when she says, like, aren't you supposed to be across the world? He's like, oh yeah, I came back.
Yep.
He says it like so, like I was just bowling and I just came back now. He says it like he was just across the way or something, not like halfway across the world.
Yeah, so he starts like trying to tell her this story. We were on a field trip and we accidentally like were late for the bus and got left behind. So we
Got
need a
killed.
ride back to camp. And she's like, I've been a mother to a demigod for 13 years and to a cyclops for 1 year. Like, I know you're lying to me, kid. Stop it. What's really going on? Um, and so once Clarisse escapes, Annabeth and Percy meet up with Tyson. They then get to the car, and I love this like back and forth scene where everybody's yelling at Percy, "Get in!" because he's like slowly realizing
He's like,
everything. Whose car is
whose
that?
car is
And
this?
then wait, mom? Like,
Yeah. And I will say, this ending scene with Percy where Grover and Annabeth are in the back and they're talking and they're all excited about seeing Thalia again and they're explaining how Annabeth thinks that Thalia will come back. And Tyson's just like asking enough questions to like understand what's going on. And I just loved Sally like looking over at Percy because
yes, I noticed that
he's
too.
he's looking at the dream because he's thinking of the dream that him and Thalia are not going to get along. I was like, that is like that's the most like character accurate thing I felt like happened in this episode that I really liked because that's the exact feeling of the entirety of season 3 for him with Thalia. And I saw some comments of people being like, oh, in this version it's not because he is like jealous or because he's not it's because he's worried that Thalia won't like him. I'm like, that's what it's like in the books too. Like
Yeah,
that's all it is like they have all these connections and stories without him and he's not sure that they need him anymore. And the
yeah,
beginning of Titan's Curse, he's not included in anything that Thalia and Annabeth are doing, and so he just feels like he's on the outside of everything the whole time. And that's hard, and especially for um, a kid like Percy who thinks that the thing that makes him like these are the first friends he's ever had. He
hmm,
doesn't have confidence that if there were other people around that were similar to him, that they would still want to be friends with him
yeah,
instead of somebody else. Because if they could be friends with somebody else, wouldn't they just go do that instead of me? Like, why would they be friends with me? And so that's very much what he's thinking. And I just like that because that is so much of their dynamic in season 3 is him figuring that out of she's always mad at me like I didn't do anything though, and the dream that he had just makes it even worse of like that dread feeling. I had so many feelings like that growing up around people because that was also me. Like whenever friends would make new friends, I'd be like, oh, they're just gonna stop talking to me now. And I would just like wait for it to happen. Sometimes it
yeah.
did. But it's also like sometimes it didn't. But I just assumed every time somebody new would show up, I just would assume that would happen eventually. And was always surprised when it didn't. Um,
Yeah, and you have to wonder, like in the books, it's not too far of a stretch with how things go that he would also be scared that she could potentially join Kronos' side because she spends most of Titan's Curse talking about her connection with Luke and who she remembers Luke as. And it takes her meeting him and fighting with him to actually like fully come to terms with like that's not my Luke anymore. Uh,
yeah. And
yeah.
especially like it's one of those things like Grover and Annabeth are just want to be excited about seeing her again. And so they're just ignoring all those sort of things, even though that's been something in at least Annabeth's mind this whole season.
Yeah.
They just don't want to think about it right now, but that's all he can think about because he had a dream of her electrocuting him.
Hmm.
Like, how could he not think about that? Of like, what if she shows up and she attacks me? Will like they take my side, or will I just that would suck. Either way, being electrocuted
Yeah.
would really suck. Um,
Yeah, so
um,
Percy's look here, I think it's so many emotions playing on his face at one. It's confusion, it's numbness, it's being scared of like what this all means all
mhm.
at once. And yeah, that little like background, because I think it's even blurred, like it's got a little blur to it, but you can tell that Sally is focused on him and noticing like, dude, he's not okay. What's going on?
Yeah, and well, especially because some of the lines that Annabeth and Grover are saying, like, they're like, oh my God, is she going to be at camp by the time we get there? And
Yeah.
that's what makes him remember the dream with all the dead children at
Yes.
camp and everything. And so he's just thinking, like, he doesn't want to be the one to, like, bring them down or anything like that. And so he's just keeping that inside
Mhm.
until they get there and see what happens. And I honestly don't know what's, like, we have no idea what's going to happen in the next episode. It's all brand new stuff. And
Yeah.
so who knows what they're going to find at camp when they get there. Um, because I'm
Um,
sure Clarisse would already be there.
so okay, and then here's the other part where we get another physical torture scene with Luke and Kronos. So part of what conversation Luke and Annabeth had together was it really felt like more of Annabeth trying to turn Luke back than Luke trying to turn Annabeth to like his side, which we honestly kind of needed to see that this episode, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they would have had him making an active recruitment kind of strategy for her. But with her, she tells him, I know what the police can do. It can bring Thalia back to us. And so he's she tells him during that, he's like, no, Kronos would have told me if that's true. And she tells him to ask Kronos. And so
Mm-hmm.
it goes back to the Admiralty suite once everybody gets away, and he's like doing his brooding, looking out into the ocean thing that he does at the end of every episode he's in. And he asks Kronos, why didn't you tell me? It can bring her back. And this is where we get Kronos migraine powers. He's like clutching his head. It's very over the top dramatic. And he's like writhing on the floor saying, I'm loyal. I've sacrificed everything for you. And while he's having the little migraine thing happen, Kronos' voice says, okay, prove it. And he then rises up, and I don't even know what to interpret the look on his face here as.
Well, I will say Kronos tells him go to camp and kill everybody, and especially kill the
Yeah,
son of
burn down
Poseidon.
camp, kill the son of Poseidon. Those were the direct orders.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know either, and I feel bad saying that, but I'm not honestly not sure what like emotion was supposed to be on his face. Like,
Yeah,
um, I thought it was supposed to be like a conflicted feeling, of I know I'm supposed to do this, but I don't want to. But other people have interpreted it as like this is Luke like accepting his path. And so it could be like that dread sort of feeling, but also accepting it. I will say that this are like I said before, these are things that only would bother somebody like me, but just that whole conversation, I was like, that is not how we talk to each other.
mm-hmm.
Like, that's not how we talk to each other. You don't just ask your abuser, why did you lie to me? I don't want to die today. Like, you don't have direct conversations with somebody that's abusing and manipulating and gaslighting you so much that you don't remember anything about your own life in the
Mm-hmm.
way that Kronos would be with this sort of dynamic. And so, like, I thought when we talked about this episode, we could talk about, like, the cycle of abuse. We can't even talk about that with Luke because they don't show him going through the cycle of abuse, really. And I was like, damn it. I thought that we'd be able to talk about that. That's always good to talk about. Like, when people say you're a cycle breaker, what cycle you're actually breaking.
Yeah,
But just the whole idea of him just being like, I sacrificed everything for you, those are insight thoughts.
yeah,
When somebody's abusing you and like grooming you and things like that, those are the things that you like scream inside your head, that every once in a while they like literally like burst out of you, like you feel like you just like puked them out of your mouth because you don't know where they came from, but you hardly ever say them out loud because the punishment you would get if you did that would be so bad. And that's like part of what I mean by like the physical torture thing doesn't feel real to me, because he will already has been experiencing things like that earlier in the episode. And so he knows that when he does things that Kronos doesn't like, that's something that he would do. And so you can find ways to bring those things, you find ways to phrase those things and bring those things up in a way that is safer for you to discuss. Like in my head, when I was watching it the second time, I was just imagining him saying, like, um, like, just saying something about, like, you didn't think that it was worth, like, us bringing back Thalia. Since you didn't want, since you didn't tell me, like you can phrase it in a way where you're telling them like I'm figuring out your plan with you. That's the kind of thing that would impress them, that you were like figuring out what their plan was. And that's like a safe way to bring that stuff up so that they will then answer your question without hurting you. And if somebody is hurting you all the time, that's what you do, is you figure out ways to get answers from them that you want to know without sounding like that's what you want to know, in a way that won't bring you more pain. And so just that whole idea, I was just like, oh my God. But either way, the episode ending like this was just, it felt like such a definitive thing that I really didn't like. They've never like gone so hard on trying to make Luke overwhelmingly a victim before. Um, and like all of the nuance of the situation that I liked about it in this episode at least was not there. I hope it comes back in literally every other episode of the show, like it has been there so far.
Yeah.
Um, but in
I
this
have
one, I was
ideas
just like,
on. I like to have an idea on how they could fix it, but with this whole thing, the point that like I think we should make, especially because of some of the stories we've heard from our audience members who
mhm.
like identify with the aspects of Luke where he is grooming, where he's a lot more villainous and not as sympathetic. Part of the reason why we're not going to switch up how we talk about him with this is because we agree with you guys that like in the books he is, yes, still a victim in his own right, but like you don't have to feel bad for him for it, and you shouldn't have to feel bad for him for it. People still do, even though there's not as much to work with there.
Mhm.
With Luke, like I don't know, like it's hard not to feel betrayed because things before, and this is something that I wanted to make a bigger topic that we talk about with this, is people have asked Rick before, does Luke get redeemed? And his answer is maybe in the next lifetime, essentially.
Oh yeah, I have that quote. Let me read it real quick.
Yeah.
Um, Somebody asked, do you think Luke is redeemable? Like, do you think he could live another life after this and like redeem what he did? And Rick says, I think everyone is redeemable. That's what makes it so tragic when they choose not to accept redemption. That sounded religious, but I don't mean it like that way. I just mean we all make mistakes, and
Mm-hmm.
often we choose the path that are most destructive for ourselves and others. As for Luke himself, I think maybe he will get redemption in a following lifetime. And so either way, that just makes it clear that he never chose, Luke is a character that never chose redemption when he could have. And it is sad. Like, I'm not going to say that it isn't. When there are people like that that live their life like that, it is sad to
Mm-hmm.
see people who have chances to turn things around and just refuse to. And he has, every time Luke talks to Percy or Annabeth, those are all chances for him to turn it around. And he doesn't. And so it is sad that he doesn't do that, but it's not sad to the point of describing him like a revolutionary figure that's actually trying to help people when he's not, and or
Yeah.
like downplaying the severity of the things that he ends up doing. Like, it's sad that he feels like he needs to do these things in order to be happy, to make somebody happy. That's true. But not in a way that goes so far where you start making excuses for him doing really, really painful, horrible things. That's where I feel like it goes too far when people start doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think our perspective also comes from the fact that we're people who've gone no contact before. We're people who a lot of the stuff that happened to us did stem from our parents' trauma, and so like yes, they went through the shit themselves that they shouldn't have, and it's terrible. And like I wish that their life wasn't like that.
yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, do you think in your like for your dad that he deserved any sort of redemption or he could have done anything that would have been true redemption in this lifetime?
Not really. That that doesn't mean that he shouldn't have tried. And for that's kind of the whole thing of how people talk about this stuff, where I feel like they're always talking about only like half of like the context of these of things with Luke, and I just get that's why I get frustrated and just stop. But
Yeah.
for anyone who doesn't know this sort of thing, my dad did lots of stuff, but um, the big thing that usually gets at people is that he sexually abused me for I don't know how long, at least like 10, probably around 10 years or so. I honestly don't know. You don't really never know when it comes to that kind of stuff when it happens when you're young, because you just, like I said before, you don't remember it. And it's not a good idea to remember it just so you know what ages you were. That's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Um, but my dad, like, when he was doing that stuff when I was little, most of the time when people do things like that with their own children, it's because they've somehow been introduced to that even as like an option. Like, most people don't think of like getting your needs met by doing that sort of thing with your child, especially. And so I don't know like what happened with him, but I can only assume that something did at some point, that where he even knew about that sort of thing, because that is like when we talk about the cycle of abuse where people become abusers, that's the kind of thing that people do, where that happened to them and then they end up doing it to somebody else one day and they don't, and it just happens like that, like what Luke ends up
Yeah.
doing. He ends up becoming someone just as scary as who he thought his both of his parents were. Um, but with my dad, I do know at least that his dad was not a good dad at all. He was very like stern, angry, physically like abusive and stuff. um, his dad was like in World War II and was super strict about stuff. Like my dad was undiagnosed autistic, and his brother told me how he wouldn't give people eye contact when they would eat dinner, and his dad would scream at him so much about it that he just started looking at people so that his dad would stop screaming at him about it every day. And so my dad used to tell me, like, this is like how weird people like this are. He used to tell me when I was growing up, like, my dad was a lot worse than me. And he used to talk about his dad as like, no, you guys don't understand what what scary is like, because you didn't have my dad. My dad was way worse. And it's people like that don't understand. They cannot conceptualize the fact that they are as scary as their dad is, because they remember their dad when they were a child, and they're not a child anymore. He was already like an emotional, verbal, like monster.
Yeah.
He didn't have any friends. Like, he had one friend when he was at work, and that was it. His nickname at his job was Richard, which was not his name, because he was a dick. He had to go through anger management at work many times.
Yikes.
Many. I don't know how, my mom has told me, I don't know how they didn't fire him, because he would scream at everybody like he did with everyone. And like the last few years of his life, he lived with my mom again, even though they were divorced since I was 12. Um, and like if he didn't live with her, he would have died like homeless on the street, because nobody else talked to him. Like, nobody else. My mom and me and my sister were the only people that talked to him. He didn't have any friends. His family cut him off when I was 16. Nobody else talked to him. And so the point I'm trying to make with this whole story is, yes, my dad went through something in his childhood. I know of some things that he went through from the things that his siblings have told me now. And I could put things together with how his parents acted. Like, imagine what it was like for me growing up that I cut this out of our other episode, but just to like get this idea, when I was 7, I like temporarily ran away from home. I got on the wrong bus on purpose and saw my grandparents waiting for me, and I got on the wrong bus on purpose because I didn't want to go see them. And I didn't care that I was lost for like 2 hours. I didn't want them to find me. And the bus driver ended up figuring out that I was on the wrong route because we lived in a super duper small town then, like so small that they didn't even put the population on like on like the sign. It was super. It like the downtown area was a gas station and like a veterinarian place and a pizza place all like next to each other, and that was it. And a bar because it's Wisconsin. But they like he figured it out and helped like me find my parents and like drop me off where I could find them again. But like I just didn't want to go home. And
Yeah.
I was in first grade and I just didn't want to go home and was fine with just disappearing for a couple hours. Everyone thought that I just accidentally got on the wrong bus. I finally told my mom that I did that on purpose like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I just like let them think that because I didn't want to tell them the truth. But like, do you think that for a character like Luke is very much that sort of archetype of he had very traumatic things that happened to him in his childhood? Those things are very difficult and very
Yeah.
hard and very traumatic, and PTSD was definitely happening and things like that. Um, but does that mean that all the things that he's doing now in the context of this story is okay? Or that people should just forgive him, or that we should see him as a victim because Kronos is now using the like insecurities he has from his his abuse in his childhood to make him this monstrous person. Like that's what I mean when I say like the things that my dad went through before I was born was not my fault. Like he
Yeah.
started doing that stuff to me when I was so young that it was like I didn't know what I was doing. This was the only life that I knew. Like this is the only life experience that I have is experiencing that. That was my childhood. And that is my father. I look like him. Like I still don't like taking pictures of myself because I look like him. I can hear him sometimes in my voice.
Yeah.
I just, it never escapes you when it's your parent that does it. And so it's like, yeah, my dad went through abuse with his dad and his family. His family doesn't talk about anything. But does that mean that he should just treat me and my sister and my mom the way that he did, where he was just as scary? Like, my I didn't know about this until a couple of years ago, but when they were divorcing, my mom had a restraining order against him, but he would show up to the house anyway. And
Mm.
our like local police department used to drive by our house every night to make sure we were like, alive.
Yeah.
Like my piano teacher that I stopped seeing when I was 12 because he didn't let me do it anymore. She said she used to drive by our house to make sure that we were still alive because she knew that things were really bad when they were getting divorced. Like, do you know how scary you have to be for the police and other people that you know to be doing that sort of thing because they're that afraid of you? Um, at when you are that scary, which is what Luke is, like in the next, he just stabbed Percy because he was mad at him. Even if the narrative fixed it, he still did that. He's still capable of that. He was going to stab him to death at the end of the first season when he was a 12-year-old child. And in the next episode, he's going to be slaughtering like children that he grew up with at at camp. Like they're showing up there specifically to do that. Does the fact that he was abused by his mom matter anymore? In the same way, like, does it matter in my story that my dad went through that stuff before I was ever born? No, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so hard when people have these conversations because you have to like cut off the reality of it or to really think about it in order to look at it in such a simplistic way. Like Yeah, Luke was used by Kronos. Kronos knew he was primed to just do anything as long as somebody just in authority acted like he was smart for 10 seconds. He would do anything that anyone told him. If Kronos wasn't the one that found him, somebody else would have got him to do something like this. Um, but it's not as simple to say, like, if he never met Kronos, he wouldn't have done this stuff, because people don't want to do things like this most of the time. Like, no other character in the story wants to. Like, other characters can't do it. They, like, back out of the stuff that Kronos wants them to do because they can't do it. Like, Ethan can't do it. Like,
Yeah.
Ethan Nakamura in The Last Olympian, Percy mentions to him one time that he's a hypocrite because he's all about, like, balance and things like that. And he's like, I saved your life and you keep trying to kill me. How is that right? And he mentions one time to Ethan, and he like can't do it anymore, and lets himself in, like, and gets killed, granted, but still, like, he can't do it anymore, even if it means that Cronus will kill him. He can't do it anymore. And that's the whole thing I try to say with, like, Luke and people like my dad. Like, my dad could have chosen to stop.
Yes.
Like, every time he ever hurt me, he could have decided not to. They aren't helpless. And people talk about them as if they are. Like, oh, Luke is helpless to do these things because he's been manipulated by Kronos. It's like, no. He could say no in the same way that my dad could have stopped. There were times where he could have stopped. He definitely could have stopped when he saw me having several mental breakdowns before I got to high school. And he did stop eventually during that time, because I don't know if he would have ever stopped without my parents getting divorced and stuff. So we didn't live in the same house for a while.
Yeah.
But like, he could have stopped. Like, he had to have seen how that was stuff was affecting me, even if he thought that he deserved to do whatever he wanted to me, because he didn't really see me like a person.
Hmm.
That's like what I was trying to say about dehumanization. My
Yeah.
dad didn't know how to be a parent, and so he blamed me for just being a child that had, like, needs. And he blamed, like, my sister for being another child that had needs. He blamed my mom for being somebody that he had to figure out how to be in a relationship with, and he didn't know how. Instead of figuring out how, he blamed us for having those things just by existing, and felt like he could
Yeah.
just take those things out on us. That's how people like that are. And so it's like, it's not so cut and dry that he's only doing these things because Kronos manipulated him, because every time Kronos does that, he has to actually go do it.
Hmm.
Like in Titan's Curse, when he uses Annabeth's empathy and love for him to trap her underneath the sky, and then laughs at her when he's walking away,
Hmm.
he is the one that did that. He was the one that was laughing over Percy when he was about to kill him in Sea of Monsters before Chiron bails them out. We'll see. I hope that that sort of thing happens on the next episode again, that Chiron shows up and is able to help them when it looks like everything's about to go to shit. But, and I do think that this stuff is going to come into play in the next episode, because it seems like from the new trailer they put out that there will be multiple people that will be moles for Luke.
Potentially,
And
yeah. So to get into the trailer for next time, do you remember what the name is of the Athena kid that they show?
Bronte.
Yeah, so okay, so Bronte has been weirdly present for a lot of important moments for a background character, which is why she's a good candidate for a mole. So to give
Mm-hmm.
everybody the rundown, the first time we see her really is the chariot scene. She's the one that's co-captaining with Annabeth for the Athena chariot. And then she volunteers for the quest along with Annabeth in that first scene. But once Annabeth and
Oh,
Percy all leave, she's there again, like volunteering for the quest again after that. Um, and yeah, they show her face in the trailer for next time, which is like, okay, why are we seeing this character again?
maybe that's why Luke popped in an Iris message to see if Annabeth was still alive, because his spy didn't get to go on the quest.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's very interesting that she wanted to go, when you think about the idea that if she is a spy, and I think from the newest trailer they put out today that she is, There's also a black kid that isn't like a named person that we've really seen, but he seems to be somebody who is also a mole because Clarisse is looking at him like shocked and betrayed and stuff like that. Before that, right when he's on screen. And so it looks like I feel like this is my guess for the ending episode. We don't really know how the fight necessarily starts or the things that happen before that moment. I would guess that I would guess that the scene where Percy is saying goodbye to Sally and then he talks to Poseidon, that I'm guessing that's in the beginning of the episode because
Yeah.
he says in his speech that there's going to be no divine help for anything, and so I'm assuming that he's talked to Poseidon by then and he's told him that they can't interfere and that their kids just have to fight each other without them helping.
Yeah.
And but beyond that, during like the actual battle, I feel like what's going to happen is that they're going to think that they can handle Luke. They're going to think that they're doing good, and then all of his spies are going to like reveal themselves by start attacking them and probably letting in like the Lastragonians and stuff from the barrier. Since they showed us how to get in, they can let people in when you're in camp and somebody else isn't, that you want inside when they let Tyson in. I'm guessing, just guessing, that that's what it will be. If that is, that will be horrific. And everything we just said about Luke will sound like Nostradamus because that is horrifying and that is not something that you can take back. Like
Yeah.
turning, and that's kind of like the whole point of what we've always tried to make about Luke is that people act like he's like trying to do this good thing and that taking down the gods is like a lot of the Luke apologists say that they're on his. I hate the whole Team Luke idea because I'm like, what is Team Percy? Like, there is no Team Percy. It's just Team Demigods being alive still. And like, I don't know what that even means. It just sounds. It's like a silly
Teams
thing to
don't
me.
murder children.
Yeah, it's just silly to imagine picking teams in a way that people do online, like this, because it's like it's a much bigger. It feels silly to like describe it that way to me,
Yeah.
but people do that, and the people that say they're like Team Luke, a lot of things they say is like, oh, they're on his side because they think that like wiping out the gods or taking out the gods is like the way to fix things. And this is like showing like why that is always wrong because magically somehow, even though Kronos says he wants to take out the gods, every single plan is actually about how to kill their children.
Yep.
Every single book is about how to wipe out camp. None of those plans ever. In the third book, there's a bit with Bessie, but most of it is always wiping out their children instead. And it's like if this was really about just the gods and not you trying to get rid of all of your competition before you can try to take over the world, you wouldn't go to them first. You would just attack the gods instead of spending all their time attacking their children. And so I feel like the feeling you're going to get, I hope, in the ending episode is showing how unnecessary all of this is. That
Hmm.
all of these demigods are fighting against each other when they should be on the same team.
Yep.
And because they are on the same team, but Luke has helped manipulate them to be against their own people. Like Percy wants to save all of these demigod kids. Um, he wants to. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that clip of him from an earlier trailer of him saying like when it seems like somebody said like why should we do this and he's like because heroes help people,
Hmm.
like the things that Sally has said and they brought up multiple times this season. I feel like that's him saying like we need to somehow stop these people and try to convince them to come back, because that's always been his thing. And so it's like it's so unnecessary. They shouldn't be fighting. It should feel so wrong watching them fight because none of this should be happening. And it's not just most of it is not the parents' fault because Luke is the one that convinced them. Like
Hmm.
he is the one that convinced them to join. He is their leader. He is the one telling them what to do. If he wasn't there, some of these people wouldn't have joined because most of them are people that know him from
Yeah.
camp. And so that's what I'm hoping that's what you feel when we watch the finale of just how gross it is to watch them fight and how this shouldn't be happening. And that, yes, the gods created a world where people could feel that desperate, but Luke is also the one that's actively choosing to do this when he could stop. And we know that he could.
So, to kind of like jump to final thoughts, like let's talk about the Thalia stuff again.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so I kind of have the feeling that she's gonna emerge during that final battle. And
Mm-hmm.
because we've long suspected that that shot of Percy falling over where he's smoking is like, Thalia must have shot lightning at him in
Mm-hmm.
confusion because she wakes up and sees these people fighting her friend.
Yeah. I feel like that. I don't know what else we could think but that. And that I feel like a lot of the fight is going to be everyone wondering when she's going to come back.
Yeah.
I feel like the Golden Fleece is something that will be a big part of the fight. Like they'll be fighting over, like trying
Yeah.
to steal it and then
Yeah.
trying to get
Before
it
it's
back.
like done.
Yeah, and just like the back and forth of all of that, I feel like that's going to be a big part of the fight, probably of them fighting over who has it and them trying to steal it and trying to find a way to get it on the tree long enough to like keep the barrier up and also see if she will come out.
Mhm.
And then what she'll be like when she does. Um, I like we said this on Tatiana's podcast, but we both are fine with them knowing about Thalia coming back. Like it's whatever the big plot twist is going to be about what happened to her in the past, since the ending song is called "What Really Happened," and so they can have a shocking plot twist in a different way because it wouldn't be shocking because everybody knows that Thalia is coming back who read the books. I guess my general guess for that is because the stuff with Kronos was so over the top, I'm afraid they're going to make the gods like super cartoony, over the top, villainous. Um, and so my this I would be fine with this sort of thing happening, but I feel like they're going to my general guess, something that Tatiana brought up that I feel like is accurate, is the idea that Chiron it seems like Chiron is there for some of it because it's like at night and it's dark when that happened, and he's in the dark for some of these scenes that we've seen in other trailers. That Chiron goes out there to help Thalia, and that he either sees her when she's dying, and Zeus like it isn't like trying to like help save her or anything because he doesn't want her to live long enough to be like the prophecy child. Um, and that Chiron convinces him to turn her into the tree as a way to like protect camp since there's like 8 people in camp. Camp is so tiny in that dream because they're all dying because they don't have a protection field. And so I could see it being that and Chiron just telling everybody how amazing Zeus is to make him happy and act like it was his idea when it was actually Chiron that like begged him to do it. Or I would also be fine with them doing a story of that Zeus could have saved her, but he instead like purposely, let her die somehow or attacked her or something or whatever because he doesn't want her to come back to be like the prophecy child. That fits in with how Thalia is in the next season, and it does leave you overall thinking about how horrible the gods are.
Yeah.
Um, Going into the season, I thought that the end would show that Luke was the one that was out of control during these things that caused this all to happen, but I kind of like have given up at this point after last episode that they'll show that. I wish that they would, but I don't think that they would. But I guess I'm afraid that they're going to go like super mega cartoony villainous and have Zeus do something even worse than those things. There's people speculating that Thalia was never dead and that Zeus just like shoved her somewhere all these years and that she was never even like the tree or anything like that at all. Um, and I don't want it to be like that over
I
the
don't
top.
think it's that.
I
No.
don't want them. I don't want them to change like where Thalia's been so fundamentally like that. I wanted to. I still want her that to have been her, and all that because that's part of like the sad story of her was that she was helping protect all these kids when it wasn't her. Like she didn't get like a real choice about it.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm kind of becoming attached to the idea that maybe she had some agency here and like was given the choice of like, you know, you don't have to die. I can turn you into a tree that will save the rest of camp. And
Yeah, I will say, like, when you think about Chiron, what he says in Annabeth's dream, and it's like feels like propaganda. One of
Mhm,
the things he says is that Thalia died doing what she like did, always like protecting the ones that she loved. That
mhm.
makes me think like maybe she didn't want to do it, and
Yeah.
like maybe she didn't want to. Maybe she didn't want to have to like fight the
So
Furies by herself.
here's the thing of her having agency over the choice and choosing to do it though. That would
Yeah,
be an interesting twist for the Luke portions of it because then it's like everything that he believes to be true about it is that like poor Thalia was getting chased because the gods are shitty parents and don't protect their kids. And then the best they can do is turn her into a tree. Like, but if she actually chose, yeah, I'm dying, I'd rather become a tree and protect everybody than this be for
mm,
nothing, then, you know, like it's different than him thinking it's a jail cell for her,
yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, then if it's like she decided like I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of always having to be the one to save everybody. Just like let me go kind of thing, and they're like, "Okay, we'll just do this for you so that you can protect these kids, but not, have to do it necessarily all the time anymore."
Yeah.
At least then it would be a little bit of a choice, and it would be shocking, like you said, for Luke because and Annabeth, but especially for Luke, that he's been doing all this stuff all these years thinking that she was like the reason to show like how bad the gods are and blah blah blah. And so to find out that she actually chose, and I will say if it's something like that, that's like fun to think about in
I feel
Titan's
like
Curse.
that would fix everything from episode 6 and 7 that we didn't
Yeah.
like.
And it would be fun, like personally it would be fun because the idea of when they run into each other in Titan's Curse, that she could like shock him by telling him something like that. Like I actually
Yes.
like chose to be turned into the tree because I was tired of you making me fight everything alone and constantly having to save everybody all the time, you loser. And
Yeah.
so instead, and for him, it would be like a brain breaking moment to realize that she didn't. That would be great to know that like that would make that confrontation even more fun than it already is when she pushes his stupid face off of the cliff. And so that version would be much better. I will say that Craig Silverstein is writing this episode. He is one of the showrunners now for the show, and he is the one that wrote the season finale for season one, which is like a god tier episode with how well it was written and how well the scenes were executed and everything. And
Yeah.
so I do have faith that he can like get things back. And if anyone is watching this who didn't like this episode being so pro Luke like we didn't, the writer for this one isn't listed. She's listed as an executive producer for this season, but she isn't listed as one for season three. And so she would still like be in the writer's room, but just because you're in the writer's room doesn't mean you write an individual episode. It was her, Sarah Watson, Rick, and I can't remember the other guy. Sorry, one of the other showrunners. I never remember his name. Who always writes the first episode with Rick? Craig
Mhm.
Silverstein and Shea Worthy. Those are the ones that actually wrote all the episodes this season. There's a lot more people than that in the writers' room, but they didn't. They weren't the ones writing each individual episode. And so I'm sure she's still involved with everything, but it doesn't look like she'll be as involved, which makes sense because this would be the season where like a Reylo fan could write like Luke still grappling with things,
Yeah.
and Titan's curse is when he's like gone. And so they wouldn't really need like her input as much in that way anymore necessarily. Just to like keep that in mind that if you didn't like how much it focused on him, she's not involved as much, at least executive producer wise in the next season, and so it's probably not going to be as
Hopefully
much
that's
of
a good sign.
it. Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
Well, I gotta get William to bed.
mm,
Sorry, what were you about to say?
No, that was it.
Yeah, so we're hoping that they turn it around for the next episode. But yeah, leave your Luke hate in the comments. We are here for you. It is your safe haven. Get it all out, because I know that it's a hard time right now for us. So we appreciate you guys.
Yeah. And we'll be back next week no matter what.
Yes. Okay, see you guys for the finale.